Things happen. All right, I guess I'll start over. I missed a super chat there. I didn't miss it. I referenced it, but you didn't hear me because nothing was working right at the beginning. The super chat was about independent music and how to get it out there, starting to put out instrumental music and stuff. So I did see that, and I'll mention that in just a second. All right, get my head back in the game here. What was I mentioning? Videos I did this week. I did some videos this week, but I wasn't able to put out anything this week. And the reason is because sometimes with the what's going on, just in the world these days with the corona and all that stuff, there's supply delays and stuff like that. So I've had a lot of people recently say, hey, can you delay this video coming out for like a month or something? Because I'm not ready to make these pedals or whatever it is, right? So I did 3 videos this week, but I wasn't able to put anything out. But the one for this pedal will be coming very soon. This is a high gain tube Overdrive. That sounds really great. Amp in a box kind of affair. I did a video also for, God, I can't believe I just did this whole spiel and you guys didn't hear it, but I did a video on that Red 7 amplifier back there for Guitar World magazine. That was it's a review. So I was mentioning, I also mentioned this at the beginning of the video, that I haven't made videos for amps, review videos or demo videos, because I'm a Sir endorser and I have my own line of Sir amps. So when Guitar World approached me and asked me to make some videos, I said, let me check with Sir first and make sure I get their blessing to go ahead and do that, because it's just something I've always avoided, because I have 3 signature amps or whatever. So and they said, yeah, it's okay. We feel good about it. You can make reviews of other amps sometimes. So so Guitar World magazine review of that Red 7 head coming next week. What else am I doing? A jet phaser right now from Warm Audio. I don't even want to unplug it because it's all wired in here, but I'm gonna, just because it looks so cool. It's a little bit massive, but if you like retro, and it sounds awesome, this thing. So the piece of music I came up with for this, I'm really stoked on. It's just weird kind of piece of music. I've really been enjoying using, I get questions all the time of what drum plugins I use. And on the video for this, as well as some recent ones, I've been using Butch Vig Drums, which is a plugin for Contact Player, like, or a kit, whatever instrument for Contact Player. And it sounds so cool. And I don't even really know what I'm doing with it, but it just sounds really cool. So it's more like drum machine-y, sort of. Yeah, so somebody was asking, CNN was asking if I'm going to play with the classic rock show band again. Yeah, I think so. Once all this craziness is over with, I will do that again for sure. So I'm going to address the question about independent music. Also, Arthur Gonzalez is up there in the super chat. He says, "What's cracking?" Sending lots of well wishes and good vibes. Thanks, man. I appreciate you doing that. Thanks so much. Happy Sunday to you and welcome. So let's talk a little bit about independent music. If you want to put out your own music, here's a couple things. There still seems to be a demand, at least amongst my audience, folks that are interested in what I do, for CDs. So I would say that if you're planning on playing shows, if you're planning on getting out at all and being out where there's people that are going to hear your music and that kind of thing, it's probably good to get some CDs done. That's a question people have these days. Like, should I just do a digital only release? Because CDs are, it's just a kind of a pain. I mean, you got to, obviously buy them and ship them, and they're a physical thing and stuff. And it's like, is there any, I don't even have a place I can play a CD anymore, to be honest. And my DVD player at home, I guess I could play one. So it's like, would I even be interested in one? But people like them for, I guess, the souvenir value, like having something that they can buy at a show or buy at a clinic, something you can sign. And I get that there's still a physical thing that people want to hold on to. And in certain countries, actually, like Japan, that's really, like, CDs are actually still, I think it's still 70% of, at least a couple of years ago. It's a little bit outdated, these statistics, but like 2018 or something, it was like 70% of music sales were still physical, which is crazy, right? Like, when you think about it, it's a very advanced country and stuff, but there was still lots of CDs being sold. And I think it's just a cultural thing. People like to, collect things and have their, physical thing that they can hold on to. So I would suggest getting at least a few done. And the thing about it is when you get 300 or 500 or 1,000, exponentially the price goes down as you know, like the price you can get 300 CDs for it's not a lot more to get 1,000. So you got to make that call whether or not you want to go, you know, literally, I mean, it's like, it'll be like, I'm pulling this sort of out of my ass, but it's like literally $150 more for 1,000 or something, you know? So you'll spend, you know, 600 or 650 or 700 or something on, you know, whatever, you know, 300 to 500 or whatever. It's a little bit more to get 1,000. Once again, these are just figures that I seem to remember it being like pretty close to a $900 to $1,000 for 1,000 CDs was kind of what I was, somewhere in that neighborhood that I was in. That, I mean, I could be off by a couple hundred either way. So take that for what it's worth. Beyond all that, with my, and this is going back a while, but when I first put out Guitar Nerd, I found that the gear page, like being an active member of the gear page, also like the forums back then, like Huge Racks and all those forums, people knew who I was online. This is before even having YouTube being a thing, where I've built it to a point where there's a couple 100,000 folks now that subscribe to the YouTube channel. So back then it was like Gear Page, and, you know, which had a lot of like 150,000 members or something like back then, like 2011. And so, you know, you could put out a thing saying, hey guys, I got a new CD out or whatever, people just find out about it. And that was a very powerful thing. So having your presence on all those, you know, like you got to have your Facebook, you got to have your Instagram and all that stuff, of course, but then also being active in the forums or maybe a YouTube channel, it's really helpful. And then you're asking about agents and stuff to get your music out there. I don't really, I mean, I did it all by myself. You know, honestly, like my records are total indie releases. I decided to not go with labels or anything like that. I didn't even really do independent promotion. Gordon Parish guitar, I'm going to touch a little bit more on this because I think it's an interesting subject, but I just want to hit Gordon Parish up there on the top chat before his chat disappears. He says he's running a YJM Plexi all on 10 into a Fryat PS2 with the Helix 4 cable method, getting a high pitched scream when using the loop in the power station. Are you sitting at all close to it, first of all? Because you got to get, especially if you're on 10, you got to get away from it. You know, if you're anywhere near it, does it change? I'd be interested. You know, because I find, I mean, literally like sitting here at my desk, I've got a power station sitting right there. And it, if I lean in a little bit and I'm running a loud amp, it'll start to squeal. And that's just, you know, the nature of high gain electronics and stuff, and being close to, you know, the pickups and everything starts interacting and stuff. So you got to get away from it. But if it's still doing it, it's probably a better question for somebody like Friedman, like what's causing I would, you know, it could be anything. It could be grounding or like whatever. Like, I wonder what you've got plugged in the loop. Change what you've got in the loop and tell me if it changes. So I'll look in the chat here and see if you answer any of those things. Like, what are you plugging in there and how are you powering it? And does it change if you try a different piece of gear in the loop? That would be interesting, you know. Maybe something that's got AC power in the loop, like a rack piece of gear or something like that. A lot of variables there. What else about, so about putting out your own music? Do something special at the beginning. That was an important thing for me. So like my friend Brian Ray plays with Paul McCartney. He always comes up with these cool packages when he releases a record that have like a t-shirt and a CD and some guitar picks and things like that all bundled in a bag of, you know, and he'll sell it at the beginning for $35 or something. And people want something special. If you just put your record out, it's really kind of like these days, it's hard to catch people's attention with just that. But your true fans, if you put out something bundled that is interesting, that is maybe limited, folks like that. And that was a really great suggestion from him that I took it to heart. And so when I first did Guitar Nerd, I thought, well, I don't want to deal with t-shirts and making things and stuff. So what can I do? And I thought, people know me for YouTube a little bit and stuff then. And I thought maybe I'll do a video lesson, because folks know that, you know, I teach video lessons sometimes. Maybe I'll do a video lesson on teaching some things that are on the record. And then I'll bundle it with so what I did was I did the Guitar Nerd lesson, where I taught 3 of the solos off the record in a 75-minute guitar lesson. And I figured that was, something that I could do. I could easily make it myself. I didn't need to have it produced. I could make it, or like a physical thing, like a shirt or something. It was like something I could make. And then what I did was I just made stickers, and I uploaded to a Dropbox the lesson, and I put a sticker on the CDs with the download code for the lesson. Now, I set it so that when I made the Guitar Nerd album, some of you might remember this if you go way back, but when I started selling the record, for the first 2 weeks, you can only get it on CD. So I set the digital release for 2 weeks after the physical release. And this is back when CD Baby still had their physical store. That, in other words, you could order a CD from them directly, not from Amazon or something. So for the first 2 weeks, it was only available through CD Baby from their store. I priced it at $19.95 or $20.99 or something like that, $20 basically. And all the CDs that I shipped to CD Baby had the download code on them. So from the beginning, it was like, hey, you get a free lesson and it's $20. And then after that, the record will go to $13.99 or whatever it went to, and you don't get the lesson anymore. I discontinued it. And so that's what I did. And lo and behold, my record became the #1 album on CD Baby that month. An instrumental guitar record. So I just put out the news that I was going to do this on like all the forums, on like the Gear Page and Udrax and all that. Hey, I got a record coming out, and it's my first solo record, and there's going to be a free video lesson that's 75 minutes long that comes with it. Buy the CD and you'll get the download code. You can download the lesson. And it was literally like all I had to do was make the lesson in my own studio. I didn't have to pay any production costs or anything for shirts or any of that stuff, or bags, or figure out how I was going to ship stuff. None of that. Just ship the CDs to CD Baby with the code on it and sell them for $20. And I sold 200 the first day. Pretty cool. And then I got an order from CD Baby the next day that said, we're anticipating we're going to need 800 more. So I sold I printed my whole first 1,000 CDs and sent them all basically within the first week to CD Baby. And it was awesome. It was like, that totally worked. And, it's not like huge numbers, but it was like, you sell 200 of anything for $20. It's pretty cool. And then like, and I felt like it was a good deal. It was like for $5, you get a guitar lesson. It's like, so it was like, I think it was fair, and I thought it just went really well. So lo and behold, I learned a little bit something, and also just like, I guess just the message is, come up with something special for your record release, so that I know this is a little bit beyond, because I had an audience, but I'd spent a long time on the forums talking, building my, whatever, like talking. And I played with Chris Cornell by then at gigs and things. So people knew who I was to some degree on the forums, I guess. So using all that stuff, and then just doing it independent on your own, there's all these avenues. So that's just a few things. I guess that's a really long-winded answer, but hopefully there's some things in there. If you want to put something out that you can garner something from, just do something special is the main thing. Oh, and Mark is up there in Canada, up in the super chat, and he says, any new albums coming? I should have a new one coming, shouldn't I? So what I want to do, I've got a single that I'm releasing. I was just thinking about this today. I've been talking about it forever. It's done. It's mastered. It's finished. It's a completely different kind of thing because I'm singing on it, but I got to put that song out. And that just requires me finishing a video that's on a hard drive sitting right there, the second Bob Clear Mountain video, because he mixed it. So I'll have a single coming. And then beyond that, I really need to do I've got some other stuff coming that's, coming down the road. And for that, I want to do an EP. It's a long story, but it's like gear that I've got coming. And there's some exciting stuff coming. It's not exactly a record, but I've got, that one song. And then I want to do an EP for this other thing. And yeah, so other exciting stuff that's coming that I'm sort of focused on right now. Another product that hopefully folks find useful and stuff like that's coming. So I'm just thinking about all that. John Hutchison says, rediscovering Peter Frampton music after the video last week. His Fingerprints instrumental album is great. That guy is just there's so much there to go back and listen to if you haven't listened for a while. It's so great. And we had so much fun last week, and that was a really just an honor to have him on the show. And I just love that guy. So thanks for watching. If you guys saw the Frampton interview, and he's a hell of a guy. A lot of great comments about what a down to earth guy he is, right? And he sure is, you know. And what you saw here is exactly the way when you hang with him. He's just so cool, you know. He's a lot of laughing, and he tells great stories, and he's just really I don't know, it's just a super pleasant dude. You know, I really, from day one when I met him, that's exactly the way he was. I was so stoked to, you know, just such a great person. John Hutchison says, not playing out or quitting a day job, want to get instrumental music in shows, commercials, movies, video games. What helps with that? Well, so shows, commercials, those are like music supervisors. You know, so there's every show where, you know, there'll be music supervisors that basically like they handle the music for a television program, and if you can get in with a music supervisor that likes what you do, they're like, hey, you know, you got any tracks that might work for this show or that show, you know, and then that's like but that's hard to get into, but that's the people, the music supervisors. Video games, different thing, but similar. It's all who you know, if you know people that are in the video game industry, you know, hey, can I get some music your way or whatever? You know, that's just how it works, you know. And movies, same thing. It's music supervisors. So you got to seek those folks out. Rico USA is up there in the super duper top chat, and he says he owns an MP 88S as well. I'm curious if you use the line bus in out or the speaker bus in out in your studio, and if so, how? I don't know what that means, actually. The line bus in and out or speaker. All I do is I run my amps, the inputs, and then the speaker outs into it, and then I have them. I have the main. There's two speaker outs on it, and I just use one of those. I've got them both hooked up, or do I? Yeah, I have two speaker lines coming out of it that I can. No, wait, sorry. Right, because I can do 8 cabinets. Sorry. I have two speaker lines hooked up coming out of it, as well as going to the reactive load, the aux. That's what I've got hooked up right now, actually. Reactive load, the aux, and one main speaker line. And then I've got another one run that I never use to a cab in the other room. And that's how I use it. I don't do anything else, basically. Essentially, what's going on is I'm plugging my guitar into my desk here, splitting over to my modelers on one side. The other side runs over to a patch box on my desk so I can patch a pedal in if I'm doing a video. And then the line goes from there all the way over to the front of the MP. And it's all buffered and everything, so it's good and strong. And when that cable goes into the MP up there, I guess you can barely see it. There it is. That yellow cable that's plugged in up there. You know, from there, the MP sends out to all the heads. Speaker lines come back out of the heads into the MP, and then the individual sends go out to the reactive load, the aux, and then the main speaker out that I'm using is running into my power station, so that I can, you know, have that as my new power station over here, taking the output of the power station out to the cab in the other room. So that's how I'm doing that, and that works great. Man, I'm still miffed that my mic wasn't working. I wonder what that was all about. I'm just trying to figure it out. It's so weird. It's like, it's very strange. It showed that it was working in the, I don't know, for those that just joined, my trusty Samson mic. Couldn't get it working. I talked for 3 minutes without any sound. Anyway, so you guys are hearing me through the internal mic on my computer, which probably sounds fine. Why, you know, I don't know. Maybe I don't even need to bother with, you know. Okay, let's take some other questions here. Lauren says, Pete, exactly. Do UAD plugins compare to Helix or Fractal? I mean, I think the UAD plugins are fantastic. The Friedman ones and the PT100 is fantastic. I think they did such a great job on it. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, particularly the Brainworks ones are great. I'm a big Brainworks fan. I use some of their other plugins. I think they're great software companies. So the ones at Brainworks are terrific. Where's my 72 Marshall? It's right there. I took it out because it's crazy in here right now. There's so much crap all over the place. But the Red 7 amp that's sitting over there, I had to do a review for Guitar World of that. So I needed space. And I figured that was kind of the best space for filming, because then I can like sit here and play, and you can see the amp and all that. It's right, you know, right there. So the Marshall came out, but it's not going anywhere. Todd Roy is asking if I can ask Richie Kotzen if he would be a guest. I'd love to. I think he may need some good conversation right now. Are you talking because of his crazy Halloween videos? He always does. He's a funny guy, man. He does his crazy costumes and his crazy laughing Halloween character. It's great. Yeah, man, I'd love to have him on. I'll reach out and see if he's down. I know I've said that for like 6 months, but it's time to think about another guest, because I've said I'm going to do a guest maybe once a month, something like that. So I had Peter last week, so a couple more by just me, and then I'll have another guest. Paul Gilbert, I would love to have. I'll hit him up and see if I'll send him an email and see if I can ask both Paul and Richie. I love Paul. He's a great guy. And yeah. Okay. What else we got here? Signal routing is like accounting. That's funny. I'm sorry, I lost the chat there who said that, but that's funny. What are my thoughts on the Fryat PS100? I think it's terrific. It's my favorite attenuation device, actually. It's really a load and reamp, but it sounds great, man. It's very transparent. Depends what amp you're using with it, just how transparent it is. But overall, if you just plug into it and just forget about the fact that it might not sound exactly the same as like your amp unattenuated or whatever, you forget about it because it sounds so good. My suggestion is, for whatever reason, the middle settings on the switches on it, for those that I can't really rotate my computer, but there's the two switches, the bright and warm switch, that allow you to set basically what you're doing is you're starting with no reactive component to the load, and then you're adding the reactive element. And technically the most accurate would be the switches all in the up position, but I don't know why it always sounds a little more like the reactive curve is more like the impedance curve is affecting the tone more. Like the amp sounds like, a little more fuller in the low end and a little more crazy bright in the top end with the two bumps in the curve. Then the amp actually does plug right in the cabinet, if that makes sense. So the most closest to the amp without the power station in line is if you set the switches in the middle. So to the warm and bright setting, that seems to work really good. And then if you need a little more whatever presence and depth, you can just add those on the controls. But it's a great box, and I use the effects loop in it, and I really like it. Happy Sunday, Pete, says Rick Lewis. Loved your contribution to Paul David's 8-bar backing track. Thanks, man. Yeah, that video was a real big boost for my channel. I mean, I saw a good uptick of like another 1,000 subscribers and stuff. It was great. I love doing that, and I love the response from folks. I'm glad people like what I played on it, and lots of terrific takes on that solo. Chris was unbelievable. He's so smooth. I mean, beautiful playing. So just this. He's so soulful, and his phrasing is just incredible, And the fact that he's doing it with his fingers, I found really interesting. I saw Paul did a video, actually went back and played Chris. We're talking about Chris Buck here, but his solo, he did a video of him playing it. He went and learned it. And I noticed he used a pick the whole time, which is interesting because Chris uses fingers. And when he goes up high, the last sort of 2 bars of the lick where he's up high, he does some really interesting stuff with his fingers and a kind of a drag where he's like reverse kind of drag thing, and it was so cool. And I thought, God, I gotta go back and I gotta try and learn that. But I thought Paul did a really nice job playing it with a pick as well. So anyways, I was really stoked to be a part of that whole thing. It's really great. Paul makes great videos. I mean, he comes up with great ideas. I remember his hanging with him at the Tome and Gear University thing and asking him what some sort of tips and whatnot about, what you do about making videos. And he said, have an idea. That was the main thing. I always remember that. He said, don't try and make a video if you don't have an idea. And when Paul says have an idea, I think he's really got it. If he's not physically storyboarded it out, he's done it. A lot of it is in his head, and he's got a vision of what a video is going to be, what he wants it to be. He's sort of like a filmmaker in a way or something. He's sort of pretty next level really when it comes to YouTube videos, with his, everything, the content, obviously, and then the way it flows and the way you get it across, and then also the, you know, I mean, lighting and editing and everything's fantastic in his videos. So he's a good cat. Jim is up there in the super chat, and he just because he's a good guy, he just decided to donate to the cause. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I do. Thank you for being here. And all right, let's look through some other stuff here. Steve's asking about the CRS Christmas show. That's the classic rock show that I play with, and they have a Christmas show that I to be honest, I have no idea. Like, there's a you know, they have a show that's supposed to be a socially distanced kind of safe thing going on in Liverpool. I don't know what's happening with it exactly, and they've asked me if I would be interested in doing it, and I sort of don't want to say too much about it because it's like there's obviously the factor of like, how would I go there and do that, and just on a personal level, like, do I feel like that's not like a good idea, or like do you know what I'm saying? Like, is it like I've been fairly adamant about like, you know, I'm just of the mind of like, I worry about, you know, myself and others during the whole pandemic. So there's a lot of that, you know, sort of like, I don't know, like we gotta, you know, it's just until we get a handle on this thing with vaccines and therapeutics and all that stuff. It's like I've been, you know, avoiding all situations. So it's like, I heard it. I don't want to dwell on this stuff at all, but I heard a story that shocked me last week that I'll just relate. As a well-known saxophonist, horn player in LA. Somebody says, "Show me a gold, sir." Okay, I'll get it, and then I'll tell you this story. Okay. Why not? You want to see the guitar? I'm going to show you the guitar. Here it is. I'll hold this for you. I'll tell you the story. So the saxophone player, isn't that beautiful? I love this thing. Anyway, he is an older guy, and he was doing lots of sessions from home and stuff like that. And this one particular session, I guess a producer hit him up. Producer wasn't based in LA, it was somewhere else. And the producer said, I just want to be there when you do this. I'll book a room in LA, and can we go and do the session? And the guy said, okay. And I guess, you know, and don't worry, we'll, you know, do the masks and everything and be safe. And the guy went and did the session. And about a week later, just so I'll keep it short, the guy got sick, saxophone player. And long story short, he lost 85% of his lung capacity, and now he can't play. So career's over, basically. And who knows, you know, what other complications. But that was just like shocking to me, you know. And that's a true story I heard from a, you know, drummer friend of mine that's a well-known LA session drummer cat. So I was like, this was a friend of his, you know. So I don't know, man. I mean, I'm not a young cat, you know. It's like, and we gotta keep each other safe and all that stuff. That sucks, man. I mean, it's just like, inspired by you, Pete. Thanks, September Fire. He's up there in the super chat. Thanks, man. He says, I'm just learning digital audio workstation. It's very difficult for me so far, but making slow progress. Yeah, man. The more you can do to just kind of separate the learning process from your creativity and just spend some time on tutorials and stuff like that, the better, you know? Like I always say, separate the left brain, the right brain, or whatever, you know. Logic, I know, comes with demo music that you can download for it, that are like, you know, demo sessions, and you can use those to experiment. So just load up those demo sessions, and then, you know, learn things like editing and all the key commands and stuff using someone else's piece of music that you're not like invested in. Because I think the number one thing that happens, I've talked about this a lot before, but is when you know, you get something new and then you're like, I'm going to sit down and be creative. This is going to be great. And you're like, you know, you got a song in mind, you want to record or something. And then like, you know, 45 minutes or 2 hours later or whatever, you're like, how do I arm a track? How do I just get sound? How do I, and then you're like, oh, this sucks. And then you like just leave and don't come back to it because it's a bad experience. So if you can sit down with it without even, it's great to I find with a DAW, it's the kind of thing you do on a plane or something. Nobody's really flying that much right now, but where you've got your computer and just headphones plugged in, just using the internal sound card. And like I say, have the demo session loaded up, and then just work on that and like tutorials stuff, play around and stuff. It's a different thing. You don't feel frustrated when you're just learning with when you're not trying to record, when you're just learning how to edit and move things around and make tracks bigger and smaller, expand the DAW, shrink it, try plugins on the channels, whatever, how do I make a bus? How do I route things? And you can do all that. It feels better when you're not doing it with your situation. Anyway, by the way, I just want to say, because it's a CRS Christmas show there again in the chat. I don't want to I don't know what they have planned, honestly, and stuff. I'm not really sure, so I'm not that up on it yet. So it's not completely out of the question. I just don't know what's happening. And also, I just heard that they just did another lockdown in the UK, so I don't know what that entails. I think it expires on the 2nd, something like that, of December. But it sounds like a nationwide lockdown. I mean, I don't know, what does that mean, So it's all very fluid right now and all that, right? So we'll see what happens. I guess it's pretty up in the air. Okay. What else we got here? Let's see. If you had to choose between the Friedman small box versus Friedman PT20 for home use and EVH early album sounds, what would you choose? Well, I would get the small box just because it just does more. I mean, it's got a great clean channel, the Plexi channel, the PT20 is cool, but it's like kind of like that more, it's pretty gainy and it's sort of that a little bit more like that sound, but good clean sounds and stuff, good Marshally style cleans, you can definitely get out of the small box. I really like the small box. Might be my favorite amp that Dave makes in many ways. Like might be the one if I was going to use a Friedman that I would use. So I would go small box if you can. Simon says, can you do guitar lessons? I don't really do lessons right now because I'm just so busy doing other stuff, like with videos and stuff. But I have some, like Jam Track Central. I've got some guitar lessons on Jam Track Central that you can download. There's some on my lesson playlist on my channel, and I'll always do more. Yeah. Jeff says that he thinks the UK lockdown is being sponsored by the guitar industry. He's four guitars, an amp, and 10 pedals in. Wow. Yeah, it's not. It's absolutely true. Like guitar sales are up. I heard Sweetwater was up like 40% or something last year or this year. That's crazy. And I know Toman is selling. Everybody's home and they got time. I mean, I hope folks are okay monetarily. Obviously, like some aren't. So it's like, but the ones that are, I guess, are buying guitars. It's interesting. Yeah, Todd Roy says that he hears guitar sales are up. True. It's an interesting thing. Yeah. What else we got here? Michael says that sax story is brutal. Totally brutal. It freaked me out. I mean, it's like, damn, like that's rough. Inspired to Victory up there in the super chat. He says, do you have any tips on controlling voltage? To me, it's a big part of the tone chasing. Interesting. Looking for a simple solution to dial in clean, reliable, and exact power to my amps, especially my 70 Super Lead. Well, there's that brown box thing. Have you seen that thing? And it'll dial your amp back to, 110, which is what they, were supposed to see back then if they were on, US voltage. I'm not sure where you are, but the brown box, I would say, is probably the most well-known one. I think there's some other units out there that do it. I see these guys like, really high end. It's like Joe Bonamassa and AC/DC and stuff. You can find this in their like Premier Guitar rig rundowns, but they use this Japanese made voltage regulator thing that's like quite expensive, looks like a few grand or something, but it like is a voltage regulator that'll actually filter and regulate the voltage coming out of the wall and set it for, in other words, if you got 124 coming out of the wall and it fluctuates down to 117 and goes back up or whatever, and it's dirty power coming into this thing, it'll hold it steady at 110 and just, that kind of thing. So that looks interesting to me. When I had Michael Beinhorn here one day, and he's a fan of, well, probably a lot of things, but one couple different things about guitar that he said. He said, "Did you have really good regulated power?" And I said, "No, not really. It's whatever's coming out of the wall in here. I've got a Furman, that's it. This doesn't really count. That's just like a filter." But I mean, he said, "Oh, dude," he said, "it'll change your life." Like, and I'm like, "Oh God, don't give me one more thing to think about." Like when it comes to guitar sound, it's like, really, there's something else that I need to think about. But he's obviously a very smart dude. He's produced Super Unknown and all kinds of great records, right? So that got me thinking about that. Like, do I want to spend money on that, that Japanese thing or whatever, or at least have somebody come in here that maybe does power for studios and look at the power that I've got. I can, pay somebody electrician or somebody that's, really well-versed in the audio industry. Cause there's guys like that in LA. Have them come in and look at what we got going here and see if there's anything. The main thing I have problems with in my studio is the EMI or whatever, electromagnetic interference, getting into the pickups because it's noisy in this area. So kind of a bummer. But anyways, look for, if you just want some simple, good voltage regulation, the way to, your 70 super lead, keep it happy and healthy, and so it's not seeing too hot a voltage out of the wall. Look for that brown box thing. It seems to be quite popular. Yeah. What else have we got here? Let's see. Can I recommend a digital delay with Midi that doesn't take too much real estate? Digital delay with Midi. That doesn't take too much real estate. The H9 is really relatively compact, I think. It's not as big as a Strymon or something. That's a good one. And it's obviously MIDI and does a ton of other things. I'm just looking at mine right now. What else? Under delay. MIDI. Somebody help out here. The DD200. Right? DD200 from Boss. You could use that. It's pretty small. I can't think of anything else smaller. Does anybody think of anything? Those are the two that I can think of, the H9 and DD200, that would be quite small and still have MIDI, and that you can, MIDI switch and all that stuff. Get lots of tones out of. What else we got here? Zachary's up there in the super chat. He says he wants to use plugins on the front end of his AC30. Can the HX Stomp work as an interface for this? Interesting. So you want to use like a line 6 unit as an interface to get into your computer, and then use plugins into your amp. It might. I mean, Helix. Yeah, you could. I guess. I mean, you could come in and then take. No, I don't. I guess you could. I mean, I've never thought about that. You guys are crazy. You guys come up with all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I think you could do that. I mean, I don't see why not. Maybe. Everybody out there, you can use an HX Stomp as an interface, right? I think. I've never tried it, but I guess I could. I have one, but I don't generally use my Helix units as audio interfaces. I generally am using the 1/4 inch ins and outs on them and stuff, but I think you can do that. I don't see why you couldn't. And then you would just take you would set the computer output to be the Helix, and then you would take the 1/4 inch out of the Helix and run into your amp. I think so. Might run into some ground stuff, but you could probably solve that with ISO transformers and stuff. I would say give it a try. I think it'll work. Wait. Are you telling me AC/DC is not using high voltage, says Tor? No. They're definitely using high voltage. Rock and roll. Anyway, what do you guys think of the new AC/DC? Pretty cool, right? I think Brian sounds great on there. Great to see them with Brian and Phil Rudd and stuff. Have I been inspired by any new music recently? Says Alan. Yeah. I heard what did I hear recently that I really liked? I heard a song by the singer from, this is totally like not really guitar, but it's like the singer from Paramore has an album out. And what was the song called? I'm trying to find it for you right now. I can't play it because I'll screw up my stream, but I can't remember her name, and it's going to take me too long to find it. But anyway, look for the singer from Paramore. She's got an album out. I dug that. Oh, there's a great rock band, Dinosaur Pile Up. Has anybody heard Dinosaur Pile Up? Check them out. It's very like Foo Fighters, Nirvana. It's cool. They're just fun. Check it out. Look for what is it? Heavy metal, thrash metal cassette or something is the song. Thrash metal cassette, I think it's called. Listen to that tune. It's killer. So that's fun. There's two different things, kind of singer-songwriter, modern, some electronic elements, and also cool, regular instrument elements and stuff with the singer from Paramore, whatever her new record, and Dinosaur Pile Up. Those are the two records that I've really dug recently. Dave Friedman is over on Tone Talk now with Martin Kidd. I've been trying to listen to both, but we'll catch Tone Talk later. I got to give Dave shit for doing a show the same time as me. That's a no-no. Don't do a show the same time as me. Hey, I got 478 people online, so I'm stoked. Where did I get a Dave Grohl Dg 335? I can't find a video of you talking about it. I got it from Gibson back when they first made them. I loved the Trini Lopez guitars, and I really wanted an original Trini. And when I saw they were going to come out with the Grohl one in Pelham, I was like, I need that. And I was kind of a Gibson guy then. Like I primarily played Gibson guitars, especially on television and stuff. I was like I didn't have an official endorsement contract, but I used nothing but Gibson, certainly on television and that kind of thing, for about 10 years, from 2000 to 2010. I was mainly Gibson all the time. A little bit of Sir as well, because I was just getting to know those guys. But mainly Gibson the whole way through, unless I needed a Strat or Telly style guitar. But 95% of what I did was with Gibson. So, and there was a good friend of mine that is now at Line 6, actually, that was the Gibson rep. And I just told him, like, when that Dave Grohl comes out, I got to get one, because they were limited to 300, I think, the first run. Three or 500, 300, I think. So I got one of the first 300 in blue. And that's how I just kind of I was like, please, like, and I bought it. I had to, I paid, like, I got an artist price for it, but I didn't give it to me for free or anything like that. It was a thing I had to buy. I just was like, just please get one for me, like, hold it for me. And I still have it. And I love that guitar, actually. So it's a really cool guitar. It's not the easiest guitar to keep in tune. And I think I would love maybe Norik Renson, or maybe if John Sir had time, I'd love to get the nut looked at, because it's always a little bit of a bear to keep in tune. But it sounds great, and it's cool. I actually can see the edge of it just right beside the red amp right there, sitting in my rack. Yeah. What else we got going here? Let's see. Go down to the bottom of the chat. I'm sorry if I missed any of your questions. Please ask again. Richard says, please hit the like button. I agree. Please do that if you can. And I might as well mention while we're at it, I've got a link, affiliate link, full disclosure. If you need strings or anything for Sweetwater, it's down in the video description below. That helps support the channel. If you need any stuff, drumsticks, kazoos, you know what I'm saying. They got it all. Mike says, Pete, I really like the tracks you make for your gear demos. Thanks. The one for the triple graph was especially awesome. Thank you. Any chance you'll release the full song maybe on an album? Well, that's how I came up with songs for my last record, was I just mined the old demos, and then some of them I even used some of the original parts on the demos, and then I just flushed them out into full songs. And, the magic of computers these days, you can do such things, and just kind of turned it into a full track. So, but yeah, it could be. I like that one too. I do. When are you touring, says Steve. Man, Steve, nobody knows. Nobody knows when they're doing anything anymore. It's all off the table right now until we're waiting for the scientists. It's like getting to the moon, We can do it. We do these things not because they're easy, but because they are hard. We can do it. And then we'll be on tour again once we solve these issues. John says, in the market for new near-field monitors, only have room for one pair. Any suggestions? Focal, Adams, barefoot finger footprint 2. All those are great. The Focals and the Adams are I haven't tried the Barefoot Footprint 2. Focals and Atoms are both really natural sounding and feeling monitors to me. So you picked the ones that I've tried out of everything that I really dig. Cheaper ones, I like Yamahas, those HSR or whatever they're called. A friend of mine had some, and I thought these sound really good. And they sort of remind me of NS10s, but a little more modern and, you know, balanced and stuff than NS10s are. If anybody likes NS10s out there, I didn't realize, but Chrysalid Algae has a, you know, because Yamaha long ago, I don't know why, but they discontinued NS10s. It's crazy. They should be making those forever. But Chrysalid Algae and a company now makes a copy of an NS10 basically, and they even make them with internal power amps and stuff. And it's like a good class A, B, old school power amp, I guess. So I'd love to have a pair of those actually, just to have something else to, you know, another reference. But yeah, I've used Atom A7s forever, and they don't even make them anymore now. They make the A7Xs, and I think eventually here I will probably get another pair of those. A7X is probably the upgrade. I just, you know, it's what you get comfortable on. That's the thing with monitoring. You got to get comfortable on something, and you know, it's once you get comfortable and you know a speaker, it doesn't matter if it costs $200 or $10,000. If you know it, when you switch to a different speaker, it's again, it could be super high end or whatever, or cheap or whatever it is. But if you don't know what's going on, like I hate that when I try a monitor and I'm like, I don't know what the hell is going on. Like I wouldn't be able to mix right now because I wouldn't know. It'd be like I'm like a fish out of water trying to make something sound balanced on a speaker that I don't understand the response of. So it's what you get comfortable with. And, you know, you're like, oh yeah, I know what I'm supposed to do with guitar in here. There was a top chat that I just almost missed there, but it was Derek. And he said, what did he say? He said, when you play unplugged, do you still switch to position 4 when playing funk? Yes, totally. Sometimes the neck, you know, Nile Rodgers was a neck pickup guy. He was his tones all on the neck, I think. So it's kind of interesting. But I like the funky in between. Sometimes it's just the in between sounds are a little too scooped is the word, you know. And if it's the only guitar part going on, if it's just guitar bass drums, sometimes the in between thing can be a little hollow, you know. And then the neck pickup on a Strat or something or a Tele can be really nice for like, because it's just a little fuller through the. And then if it's the only, especially for Nile, because he would play. Interesting thing about his style, and there's some great videos out here of him describing this, but he shows like how a lot of people will use great big blocky full bar chords when they're trying to play funk. And he's like, no. He's like, you know, my thing was always like these little, you know, dyads or 3-note voicings, you know, with the neck pickup. So it's kind of full on the guitar sounding, you know, and then using these small little voicings, you know, where, so for instance, you know, that kind of thing, right? As opposed to, he's like, no. You know, like do the little voicings, and then it tends to be more, you know, you let the bass take. You don't need to play all the notes, you know, with that style of music. So a warmer sound with a fuller voicing, maybe, or sorry, warmer sound with a smaller, tighter voicing is kind of what he did, and it's definitely great. He's a master. What's my go-to wah pedal? Well, just purely for the size. I mean, it sounds good, but I've had a Dunlop Mini Crybaby on my board for a couple of years now because it fits. It's tiny and it sounds good. You know, my favorite wah, to be honest, of all time was that crazy thing that got Vertex in so much trouble, the Axis, which was a BBE. Which evidently the BBE was I think it was like a, you know, I don't know, a Clyde McCoy or Vox copy or whatever, but it was a copy of some 60s wah. And that wah it just sounds mean and vicious and cool. Like, you know, the sweep is really, it's got a lot of attitude. And I loved that wah pedal. And I still have it somewhere, but it's kind of intermittent now. I don't know where it is. And wahs, they go bad. It's like I've got one, like in a couple of years, I went through like 3 wahs where they just kept breaking on me. You know, I hated that. I remember playing a show at the Viper Room once and stepping on the wah and no sound. Right when I went right for a solo, and it was a big gig too. It was like Steve Stevens and Sebastian Bach and all these guys, you know, and I step on the wah and nothing. And I remember just flipping off my pedal board, like Gotta be kidding me right now that the wah crapped out, you know. And I don't remember what it was. It was, you know, so I won't badmouth somebody's wah, but it drives me crazy. Wanted 29, he says, I love the video, the solo you did for Paul David's progression collaboration video. Thanks, man. Yeah, Paul did, if those haven't seen it, he did this really nice video where he had a bunch of YouTube guys and guitar players play on over the same 8-bar progression and just, you know, kind of improvise a solo. I think all of us sort of worked little things out, at least, you know, over our solos, but, you know, I did a few takes or whatever, and I got my idea of what I wanted to do, and then I kept the one I liked. So, and it was really fun. So thanks. If you haven't seen the video, check it out. It's a neat, you know, kind of just, you know, pull back the curtain into what a bunch of people would do when they, all right, here's this progression. What would you play? You know, and you get 10 different takes on it. It's kind of cool. Great idea for a video. Yeah. Pete, try and make an affiliation for us in Europe, maybe Thomann or Music Store here in Germany, says Jason Carter. You're absolutely right. And I should get that going with Thomann, and I will send that email because I like Thomann. You know, they're nice people, really nice people. And I should get that going because it only makes sense. You know, you guys aren't getting equipment from Sweetwater, I don't think. Mostly, right? You're probably ordering from Thomann over there if you're in Europe. So, Matan says, Sir, SL68 versus Friedman small box. Well, they're different. You know, different. It depends what you want. Depends what you want. If you need a channel switcher, you know, you're going to go to the small box. If you need a clean sound and a dirty sound, you know, you can go that route, and effects loop and stuff, the modern features that it has. Whereas the Sir is just straight up plexi. It's a great take on an old plexi. You can get it. It's reliable. It's not going to break down on you and all that stuff. So if you're looking for like, I have to have a 100-watt Marshall, you know, then it's a great way to go. You know, and you know you can get one that's gonna, with a warranty, that's gonna, you know, last forever. Vibas is up there in the super duper chat, and he says, thanks for turning me on to the H9. Spent a day learning how to tweak it, and it sounds stellar. Awesome. Now torn between getting another H9 or a timeline. Yeah, I know what you mean. That's why I have two. It does a lot, and that's the only thing. If you want a reverb and a pitch shifter or something at the same time, you're going to need two of them. So it just depends what you're doing. But well, timeline's great too. It is. Yeah. Do I have family in the UK, says Steve? I do. Not that I really know that well, but I actually, they're kind of distant. Like I have cousins, and I actually went and hung out with them once when I was, the only time that we really hung out, I was like 14. And it was really fun because I remember going there, and it was on a kind of it's a long story, but it was like kind of a school trip that I was on, but they let me take off with my family for a day. And I remember them coming to pick me up, this cousin of mine there, and like distant cousin kind of, and he had a Marshall cabinet in the back of us. He had like a Volvo station wagon or something. I remember there was a Marshall cab in the back. I was like, this guy's cool. And he played guitar and stuff. And we ended up going for dinner and hanging out and having a great time. It was me and my sister and he and his wife, I think, at the time. This is going back to the early 80s. So, and then they took me to this punk club called the Greyhound. I remember the name of it. And I remember like a London punk club in the, you know, early to mid 80s was cool. You know, it was really neat. And I'd never been I was 14. I'd never really been in a place like that. I was like, this is awesome. It was really fun. But yeah, we just, you know, I didn't really stay in touch with those folks. And it's weird. You know? It's like the family spread out, you know, all over the place. Let's see here. Cody says he asked as a super chat earlier, but I think it faded. Sorry, Cody, I missed it, but I'm seeing this now. Did you notice any difference using the FM3 in front versus going straight in? I'm a little worried about all the A to D to D to A conversion. I haven't done a really hardcore test, like trying to use it just for effects, for instance, but I think they've kind of got that stuff pretty sorted. I mean, they've, you know, the FM3 came out like 8-9 years ago or something now, at least. Is that what it's called? Not the FM3. Sorry, what was the effects one? FX8. Is that what it was called? I think FX8. And you know, they kind of, I think the converters are really good now, and they're fast generally. You know, it's like, I'm sure it's probably sub 1 or sub 2 millisecond or something on each conversion. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think you could probably use it as a device. I mean, you'd have to try. You just have to try to see if it affects the tone with your rig in a way that you, because there's so much involved, right? It's going to buffer, for instance, for sure. So you might plug it in and just think, oh, this sounds different, because you're used to loading or something of, you know, true bypass and some capacitance. Then you plug it in and things get a little brighter or something, and that might seem, you know, so you never know. You just have to try these devices. But I think generally speaking, you should be fine, you know, that I wouldn't worry too much about it. And I really like that unit. I mean, it sounds great, you know, and you know, you can get great pedal style effects out of them and stuff. If you're looking for a good all-in-one kind of thing, or 4-cable situation. Vanjard says, some time ago you mentioned thinking about a home rig. What design philosophy would this rig have? Would it have to do every sound, you know, or would it be a Morello style rig? A home rig, like you mean for me, for recording stuff? I would just take a PT15 home and probably use the Helix I have there, to be honest. I've got a Helix pedal board that has a Keeley compressor, an H9, a Starlight fuzz from Crazy Tube Circuits, and an Archer Overdrive on it in the loops of the Helix. And then I can hook it up 4-cable to an amp if I want to. It's a great little rig for, you know, home, and for even for playing live. I used it on some live stuff and it was great. So that, you know, would probably be what I'll use with a PT15. And I get probably just about any sound, because the thing is, I can always use the Helix for an amp. If I need like an AC30 or something that I don't feel like maybe the PT15 does, I could call up an AC30 preamp and use that in front of the, you know, 4-cable into the PT15 or whatever. So it's very versatile. So it's going to be that, I think. The other thing I used to use at home a lot was a Kemper, like a lot of people. So I have a Kemper still sitting here, and they work really well for those sorts of things. You know, home like practice and simple home recording and stuff. I mean, the PT15 is stellar, and then, you know, a lot of folks do the modeling thing too and get great results. So there's so many great ways to go now. Definitely. I mean, I live in it's not a place where I can make noise really. Like, you know, can't have loud amps. So it would be a direct situation for sure where I'm at right now. So this is my space for the loud amps. Somebody said, awesome channel. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Oh, it's Baron Guitar. Thank you. Thank you. What else we got here? Ben says, welcome to all joining late. We got 523 people online. Thanks for being here, you guys. This is awesome. Thanks for showing up last week for Peter Frampton's interview. He had a good time, I think, and so did I. Had a great time, and I hopefully you guys did too. Get some more guests lined up here soon and whatnot. Andrew M says, I really wish Sweetwater was a dealer for Sir guitars. Would love to have a Classic T at some point. I love Sweetwater and I love Sir, so it's like, you know, I won't say too much about that, but I think that, you know, Sir sort of built their thing on a dealer network of, you know, they got a lot of dealers that are like, you know, Austin Guitar House, I think it's called, right? A great store, and stuff in Pennsylvania, and you know, stores like that, Humbucker, all these types of shops that are sort of, you know, boutique or maybe sort of like family owned, like smaller stores, you know, and that's kind of their main sort of, you know, network. And when you, well, I think that you know, this is just speaking as I'm not a representative for the company or anything like that, but obviously, as you can imagine, if you go to something like Sweetwater, maybe you're bound to piss off some of those folks, you know, that you've built this robust kind of small dealer network and that personal kind of, you know, thing with over the years. So, you know, there's all those concerns when people decide to go. I actually I'm a really big fan of Sweetwater. I just, you know, and I've got a great association with them. I think it's sometimes it's like with any relationship. Sometimes some things are right for certain guitar companies, and sometimes things are maybe not. You know, it depends on the way that the company sees how they want to position themselves, and it depends on how Sweetwater wants to do things. So Sweetwater's obviously got this model going where it's like, it's a little like Amazon, you know, you can order anything from them and you can get it quick and you can send it back easily and the service is good. And it's like, why not do that? You know, but like with Amazon, you know, that's affected obviously retail sales and stuff. So there's concerns on the other side too about small businesses and stuff like that. And so it's all a balancing act, I guess, right? And, that's capitalism. All kinds of ways to do things. What do you prefer sound-wise, a mic speaker in an ISO box or the aux? Ooh, I don't really like ISO boxes at all. I've never tried one that I liked, so I would prefer the aux, or Sir Reactive Load, or a good, impulse responses and stuff have come so far that if you do them right, they're pretty like, I've got a setup right now that I love using, which is my cab in the other room, mic'd up, and I've got a ribbon mic on it. It's an old Marshall cab with great black back, late 70s Celestians. And I've got a 57 now mounted on I think it's called the X1R from Dynamount, and I can slide it around, move it around on the cab. And I'm going to show this in a video. Actually, I made a video for this, one of the videos I made last week that I can't put out yet, but I'm putting it out in like a week or so, and you guys can see how the Dynamount works. And also, once you'll see in the video, I think, why it's so cool, because with the Dynamount, the ability to move the microphone side to side, in and out, and then also rotate the mic like this so you can go on or off axis towards the speaker, it makes such a huge difference in the sound. It's as big as changing guitars or as big as changing amps, so maybe even bigger in some ways. So the ability to dial that stuff in and then store it as presets is incredible. So I can come up with a great microphone setting for a certain amp setting and then store it in the Dynamount, and the mic will always travel back to that exact right position. It's so cool. So I'm loving that. But that said, I have the ability to, get volume here and stuff, and the space and all that to do that stuff. And if I couldn't, it'd be all IRs. That's how I would do it. No, I wouldn't even go to an ISO cab these days, because the IRs sound great. Good load box and good IRs. I mean, I use a ton of that on my last record. I've got no problem recording with IRs and a good load box. But ISO cabs always sound boxy to me. Speakers need space. It's like Tim Pierce says, the bigger you can make the space, the better for your cabinet. If you can, within reason, it doesn't have to be massive, but the more height and the more space you can give that cabinet to breathe, the better it is. So Ben Coombs says, if you're new, please subscribe. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for being here, buddy. I appreciate it. And yeah, please hit the subscribe if you haven't yet, because I'd love to have you back when I put out new videos. You'll get an alert every time I put out a new video. See, I just screwed up talking, and if I'd done that while I was filming a video, I would have redone it. Okay, do you ever mess around with different tube combinations? Yeah, sometimes. I did that more in the kind of early 2000s when I had more time or something. I would buy old 12AX7s and stuff, and Bugle Boys and Mullards and stuff, and then in various amps, I would switch them around and really listen, record, try and really listen. And when I did that, I guess I spent enough time doing it that I learned a few preferences and what I like. So I learned that I really like Tesla EL34s, the old ones. And I really liked Mullards too. I like Siemens too, a little bit different. They were good EL34s, the East German. And I liked Mullards and Bugle Boys were my main 12X7s that I dug. So it's RFTs, but they're a little darker. But I really like Bugle Boys all around. If I could just have those, and I know that they're not all created the same, but the kind of the 60s Bugle Boys sound so good to me. They just sound like everything's there, nothing's too forward. So I enjoyed, messing around with tubes like that. Eric Johnson says, curious about SL68 versus Smallbox 50 or Dirty Shirley here also. Well, to me, like SL68 is, it's going to be louder and just more full on plexy, you got the great master on it though. It does work really well. Smallbox 50 is, you can get those tones, but it's also 50 versus 100. So it's that different thing. It's going to be slightly more compressed and earlier onset of breakup of the power section and all that, I think. Depends how loud you play, whether or not you're going to notice such things, but it's just a slightly different sound. And it's also going to effects loop in 2 channels. And so it's a little more of the modern thing. And then the Dirty Shirley, to me, I love the Dirty Shirley, actually. I think it's a really good sounding amp. It's a little more, it has a beautiful clean sound. It's got 6L6s in it. I'm about to miss a top chat, so I better get to that. But yeah, the Dirty Shirley, great for Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, and stuff like that. But it's tube rectified, I think, right, with 6L6s. So it's got a bit more, it's a JTM 45 style power section. So think it's not a great amp maybe for metal, you know, but for rock and roll, it's really cool. Like if you want that vintage, you know, it's the SL68 is going to be probably a little faster and a little more like aggressively, you know. So yeah, consider all those factors. Rich is up there in the super chat, and he says, has a solo ever stood out to you because of one or two particular notes? The second to the last note of Page's Good Times, Bad Times solo sent me on a years-long tone bender quest. Throwback Stone Bender, a great pedal. I did a demo of that a long time ago. Arrives this Tuesday. When I think of, you just, you know, made me think of Page, like the first few notes in the kind of intro lead of Since I've Been Loving You is kind of like that, where he sort of really establishes that it's a minor blues, you know, with the first few licks. That's a great sound. What else? First couple notes of the first solo of Comfortably Numb, and the second solo too, to be honest. Great, right? I mean, you know, it's just like, I don't know, it's so cool. What else? The beginning of Beat It is pretty cool. With the harmonic he taps, you know, but with the bar bends in, it's like that grabs your attention, especially because the rest of the track is kind of that, you know, that Quincy Jones, Michael Jackson production or whatever. And then you hear this crazy guitar solo come out of nowhere. I don't know. Those are just a few off the top of my head. I mean, yeah, what else? What are some other good ones? Taxman, that gets your attention. You know, thanks for doing the top chat, man. I appreciate it. I do. 540 folks online. Great to have you here. Great to have you here. I think I'm slouching, but I'm in my chair, but I'm comfortable, so I'm not going to move. My back's been bugging me lately. I got to go to the chiropractor. Let's see here. Do you find yourself not using overdrive and gain pedals with high gain amps due to the noise floor, says Braxall? It's the only time I use an overdrive pedal with a high gain amp is for solos, because you just don't need them. But I've always been an amp distortion kind of guy. I mean, when you look at the amps I've got sitting here, it's like, that's obvious, right? You know, something about an amp distortion that always just is more, I don't know, for high gain, you know, especially. You can get some great mid gain distortion tones. When would I use an overdrive over amp distortion? You know, if you can't get an amp cranked at a certain volume into the zone in the mid kind of, you know, like something like the Timmy pedal from, I'm sitting here somewhere, from MXR makes one now. That thing, or a Jan Ray is cool, like for that, is it dirty, is it clean sort of sound, you know? And for those sounds, pedals can be really, you know, same thing like John Shanks uses the Green Nobles overdrive for, you know, that kind of like organic Nashville whatever kind of drive. That's something that is almost more easily achievable with pedals and a clean amp, I feel like, you know, with either the Timmy or the Jan Ray, excuse me. So, you know, it just depends what you're doing. But noise floor, I don't really care that much about noise. I mean, if I'm using an Archer in front of my PT100 and I've got a fair amount of gain set on both, it can get, I do use a gate only for just the hiss in the loop of when I've got the Archer in a loop in my switcher, and then I'll put the gate right after that, just because it gets it like a real high gain sound. It can get a little like, you know, and it doesn't bother me when I'm playing, but then when I stop playing, you know, just that coming through and people are trying to talk in the rehearsal room. You're like, God, my amp is like really, it's a lot of hiss right now, you know? So I'll use it for that. But yeah. Somebody else there in the top chat. Who's that? The acronyms. Can't stay long, but wanted to say thank you, Pete, for turning our band onto Sir Guitars. We're looking to get PT Sigs next. That's awesome, man. Thanks. Thank you, man. I love my signature guitar. There's one right here. I've yet to put the new bridge on this. I've still got the 510 just on this one, so I've got to remember to get that going, because I would love the new bridge. To me, 510 is a good bridge, but the new bridge just even sounds better. So, like, besides the staying in tune better, you know, it's a fantastic thing. So, let's see here. Somebody else up there in the top chat says, it's Jay Yelton says, any thoughts on the Sir Classic S Metallic this year? I decided to get one as my first S type. Are you talking about that new one that they make in those great colors, like the orange and the, because I love those colors they chose for those. They're so cool looking to me. I mean, really cool looking with the black pick guards and stuff. So I think that's a great choice. I mean, they use those dark, well, it's like mine, kind of a dark rosewood. This one is probably the darkest, you know, it almost looks like ebony, but it's not. I love that. And then those great metallic colors, really cool. So I bet it's a guitar you're really going to enjoy. Thank you guys all for doing the super chat. All you good folks. Jeff is up there as well. Thanks, Jeff. You guys are too kind, honestly. I really appreciate it. Patrick Kelly, thank you guys. Very helpful. Supporting my channel. I appreciate it. Greetings from Carlow, Ireland. How often do you change power tubes, says Patrick. Well, not that often. If it's a tour amp, I'll change them usually before a big run. Like if I'm going to go to Japan or whatever, you know, for 4 months, I'll take the amps and get them retubed before I ship them. Because generally speaking, when they come back from a tour, Chris from Sir will look at them before I go on the next run. He'll go, oh, yeah, these needed to be replaced. Like these got some miles on them. You know, they tend to start to drift, and, you know, one's at whatever the bias, you know, is it 38 milliamps on one and 26 on another one or something in a quartet. After a while, even if they start off matched, you know, they tend to. So, you know, so I'll do them then. If it's here in the studio, I'll go forever. I mean, I should probably change them more, but the time on the amps gets split between, you know, like it's not like I'm hammering away at high volume all the time on these amps in here. It's like, you know, this the last, you know, couple few years in here at least. I mean, I hate changing things. I hate changing strings, and I only do it when, I don't know about you guys, but it's just like when the guitar finally just boom, you hit the string and it's dead, and you're like, oh, I can't make a video with this guitar of a pedal because it's doing the pedal it's not doing the pedal justice if my guitar sounds like it's, you know, came from the bottom of the sea. So then I'll change them, you know, and then I always feel good about it after, for, you know, it only takes 15 minutes and I'm really fast about changing them. And then, you know, Braxall says, is that the gold guitar you got back from Japan, or do you have more guitars and amps stored in Japan? My main 2 tour PT100s are in Japan, and cabinets. So I got 2 PT100s and 2 of the PT212s. That's why you don't see a blue PT in here, because they're in Tokyo. So I wish I had them, but they've been over there. They've been over there for a while, but it's expensive to ship things back and forth. And, you know, the hope is always they'll go back over there on tour and stuff. I suppose if we get on to 5 years or something and we haven't done anything else, I might get those amps back, you know, but the hope right now is, of course, there'd be more work to do over there. So Dan, the tube man, says, I have never seen tubes wear out. Well, Dan, sometimes what we find is that they, you know, you don't want to go when you're tour, especially in like where there's humidity and stuff. I just find I need to get my amps looked at, like Japan in particular. We play pretty loud, and it's like I say, I'll do a tour over there, and then sometimes the amps will come back, and we'll look at the tubes, and they've drifted a lot, and they're kind of out of spec, you know, and gets to that, like Chris has a good at Sir, you know, he's the guy that does all their, you know, I think final amp setups and burning in, and so, or at least, you know, he's part of the major dude in the amp department there, and he's got a good feel for when he looks at a quartet and says, these are sketch, you know, and so I always trust him if he looks at them and says it's time. So tonally, I mean, I've seen tubes wear out. I've had tubes on the road, like for instance, I had a tube power amp once. And it was crazy. I was using it as a wet dry rig. It was a Randall RT250, one of those tube power amps. And one side started swelling up and down in volume, like crazy. And I was wearing in-ears. So it was like, what is happening? Like the left side got super loud and then just like went away. And my rig was like wet dry. So it was like with dry in the wet cabs. So one side would go and then like the sound had become super skewed. I go, what the hell is going on in my in-ears? Meanwhile, I'm playing in front of like, 30,000 people. And I remember that with Chris Cornell, it was like at this one show that I was playing in Chicago with the sound swelling up and down. And I was like, oh, and so that was the tubes going bad. And, lo and behold, I didn't even know that was a thing, but yeah, the volume can go up and down, like, big time. So that was weird. And somebody else is mentioning I've red plated a couple tubes. I have too. EL30 or EL84s. I mean, I've seen those red plate, like where the amp starts, you might smell something funny, or it's like, why does it sound like a fuzz box came on? You look in the back and the tubes are like bright red. Had that happen. I had that happen in my very first or second tube amp. I mean, my Boogie Classic or about 50 caliber. I remember the red plating in those, like crazy. Have you been practicing your Japanese, says El Scott Music? I haven't really. And Simon Toft is now, there's a bunch of hiragana there that I'm not going to be able to read because I've been so slow. No, I can't do it right now, dude. Everybody's going to get bored and leave if I try and read that. I haven't been practicing my Japanese. It's been so long. I know I should. It's like I got no excuse because it's like lockdown and stuff. So I've been meaning to get back into that in the mornings. Let's see here. Out of Specs makes more harmonics, says Dan the Tube Man. Well, can also just shut down your whole gig, right? Let's see. What kind of strings are you playing these days? I use 9.5 to 44 Primo Slinky Ernie Ball. Only 9.5 gauges that I know of are from D'Addario and Ernie Ball. There might be others, but those are the ones I know about. And so, yeah, I'm a longtime Ernie Ball guy, and I use those. And I really like 9.5s. If you're using the amp 4 to 6 hours a day, says Braxall, 4 times a week with an aux box, how long will the tubes last? 4 to 6 hours a day, 4 times a week is a lot, dude. That's 4 to 6 hours a day, 4 times a week. And that's pretty, like, I would probably every 6 months, I'd be looking at your, just take it to a tech. Like I say, like a good tech should be able to look at them and see if there's, and it depends on the tubes, right? Because stuff these days doesn't, American tubes, the old ones, they just lasted, and nowadays stuff's, well, it's just not made like, you don't make them like I used to. I don't know why I had just a hard time getting that out. Hey, Pete, I'm thinking about getting wet, dry, wet, says Alex B. He's up there in the super chat. Thanks, buddy. He says, with some dry in the wet cabs, would it be too much difference to do Greenback 30 in wets and Heritage Greenback in dry? I mean, it's going to be, they're more efficient speakers, but that it might be a better tone. The blend of the speakers might be exactly what you want. And of course, you've got separate control over the wet cabs because you're going to have a power amp or something. So you're going to be able to back those down. So, you just have to balance out the volumes of the cabinets so that your dry cab is at the same volume as your wet cabs. And it might be just great. So don't worry about it. I would say give it a try and see if you like. It's more about the tone. If you like the tone of those speakers, or if you like all Heritage Greenbacks. Or Heritage Greenback's a pretty big difference between a Greenback or between a V30, and they're 1 dB. I think they're 96 dB efficiency as opposed to 97 for a regular Greenback, and then a V30 is like 99, I think. So the difference between a 96 and a 99 is pretty vast. Like the difference, all things equal, if you put a Heritage Greenback and a V30 in a 212, it would be dominated by the V30, the tone. It would sound quite, I wouldn't do that. A Greenback and a V30 can work with the 1 dB. It's not, and especially if it's a vertical cab where you can have the Greenback in the top, which is what we do in my PT15 cab right there. The Greenback is that one, and the V30 is that one, and that works. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. What else we got here? Thinking of getting a small JTM Plexi type amp, says John Maloney. Have you ever played the Cornell 1820? I haven't. Those are those British Cornell amps, right? I haven't actually tried those. I'll I'll come back to that just 1 second. I'm gonna miss this super chat here. Deshawn says, says, next time you go to Japan, go to Yokohama Chinatown to a place called Windjammer. Great live blues and jazz. That's cool. Yokohama, I've only really hung out in once. The first time that I went down there to tour, we played Yokohama Arena for the first 2 shows I ever played with Yoshi, actually. It was a hell of a first 2 shows because it was like 18,000 people a night. It was awesome. But that's the only time I hung out in Yokohama. And it was cool. But yeah, I'll keep that in mind. I know they've got a great big Chinatown there, right? It's supposed to be pretty cool. It's one of the like main kind of attractions down there in Yokohama. Okay, so Cornell Lamps I have not tried, but I know they have a great reputation. I think those are made in England, right? I've never seen one, to be honest, in the States. I'm sure they're around, but it's one of those things where, you know, I just haven't seen one. But thoughts on Mesa Boogie, says William. I like some things that they do, and I've owned many of their products. So I owned a Caliber 50. That was a cool amp. I owned a studio preamp and a 295 power amp. Those power amps they made were terrific. The great big 4-space rack jobs, you know, weighed like, you know, metric shit ton. But great. Mark III, I hated that amp. I had one, tried to use it for a couple of years. Just a knob turner where like turn the knobs forever trying to get a sound. Then you'd get a sound, then you switch channels, and that didn't sound good. So then you change the knobs, and then you'd have lost your first sound. I just did not bond with that thing at all. I've had a dual rectifier, cool for that one sound that we know it makes. It was the right amp for the time when I had it for what I was doing. I had a 2020 power amp, pretty cool. A little like, you know, 2020 L84s. It was a little congested sounding, but it was pretty cool. Bass amps, love. Bass 400 plus, love. Great amp. So it's a mixed bag for me, you know, depending on what we're talking about. I tried one of those, the little EL84 jobs that they came out with, one of the first lunchbox amps that I thought were really cool. And they were sort of supposed to be Vox style, TA 15 or 30 or whatever they were called. I didn't like that thing at all, man. I thought it was going to be cool for whatever reason. I just couldn't get a sound out of it. Studio 22, like the old ones, great. Like really cool, you know, that liquidy lead tone. They were cool. Mixed bag. That's honestly how I feel about them. Yeah. Baby John says, recommended drive for a classic rock tone with a Les Paul into a JTM 45 voice Marshall vintage modern. JTM 45 voice vintage. Recommended drive. Well, there's a ton of different, I mean, so you're talking about running the amp clean and then hitting it with an overdrive. There's a ton of different ways to go. The Revival is amazing, and it's going to sound kind of like your amp cranked up from Origin. Really like this thing. Kaluna. This is great. A video of this, so you'll see this coming out in a week or so. This is a high gain tube, high voltage tube overdrive. I've got a space chart. I'm not going to get it because I've got the power slide. It's a space charged from Crazy Tube Circuits. That's another great one. Yeah. On the cheap, I was thinking about the Boss Power Stack because why was I thinking about that? Oh, because it's in the OD200 that I made a video of recently. That's a great sound. I mean, OD200 could work well, I guess, you know, for an all-rounder for a bunch of different sounds. Watch the video I did of the OD200 and see if you like that. There's some different options. It's kind of totally different there. Sir Riot is great too for, you know, sort of JCM 800 to high gain, and then a BE OD, great for the high gain stuff, like modded stuff. The 5150 EVH 5150 is great for, like, did a couple videos for that. I thought that was a great distortion too. Do you ever think you'd have Brian Ray on as a guest? I'd love to have Brian, actually. That's Jazzy Girl. I'd love to have Brian. I should ask him. You're right. I mean, I know him really well. We've been friends for over 20 years, so that would be good. It's a good idea. Thanks for making me think of that. I mean, putting that thought in my head. You didn't actually make me think of it. You drove me directly to the... What was your amp at the beginning of your career? you know, 5150 when I first got to, I came to LA with a 20, what's it called? The studio preamp and the 295 power amp. So I literally shipped a 12 space rack with all this crap to LA, and two of the Mesa. Like I say, I've had a lot of Mesa gear. I had the two horizontal 212s. Remember those with a half open back, and a 12 space rack with some rack stuff in it, and the studio preamp and stuff. So I brought that, but I never really did any work. It's funny because I never did any work with it. I just had it all. I wasn't, doing enough then. And then I quickly went, this is crazy. Like, I can't carry this stuff around. I didn't even have a car when I first got to LA. So, so I got a 5150. I sold all that stuff. Probably needed the money too at the time. And I ended up getting a 5150 and a 412 of some sort, I think a PV 412. I don't think it was a 5150 cab. I think it was like the other one with the Scorpion speakers in it. And I used that, and that was actually great. It was good, like original PV 5150, decent crunch channel, that clean crunch channel and the high gain channel. And I used that for a number of years. Eventually got rid of that. I don't remember where. It's funny, you think about it, like, where did that 5150 go? Like, I don't remember the day getting rid of it or why I got rid of it or what happened, but eventually I didn't have it anymore. And I got a Marshall DSL 50. And that was a good amp, like a solid, DSL 50. And I used that. Now, by the time I got the DSL 50, I was like getting into, like, I toured with Adam Cohen with that amp. And no, I got a top hat I did Adam Cohen stuff with. And then I can remember like auditioning for Don Henley for the first time and stuff with the DSL 50. And I remember him looking at my amp going, got any Fender amps? That happened. Yeah. But my little 6-space rack with a GCX switcher and a little pedal drawer, my first rig like that, with a few pedals on it. And thanks, BD, for doing the top chat up there. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, and like a Rocktron Replifex in the loop of the amp. So I had like a fuzz, and I don't even remember what the pedals were. I think I had an Ibanez analog delay on one of those tone lock ones on the drawer, a couple overdrives, a fuzz, and then the Replifex for delay and reverb and rotary and stuff in the loop. And that worked good, and I could channel switch using one of the loops on the GCX. So I remember that, and I had a GCX foot controller, a volume pedal maybe, and a tuner on a pedal board. And I hauled that rig around and used that thing for quite a while. And then not too long after that, so early 2000s, I had another rack rig built with a Randall, one of the M4 style pre's. I don't know what Randall called it. They called it something else, but it was the M4 style, the Agnator style. And one of their RT250 amps. Around the same time, I had the dual rectifier, and I used that for a little bit of playing live and a bit of recording. And I remember making the 40-foot Echo record with the dual rectifier as my main amp, as well as my top hat for a few things that's still sitting right there on the floor. So that's been with me like 20 years. Anyways, you guys don't want to hear about all this, but yeah, I had this rack that was like a 12-space shock rack with the 4 Randall preamps and the, Lexicon G2 or whatever the hell they were called, effect unit that was running, I think, kind of like 4 cable and some pedals, and getting sophisticated by then with the rigs. Yeah. Lauren, I just missed your chat. You said something about, Sin 30 combo. Was thinking about a closeback 112 would be good for some modules and alt tone choices. Do you think so? I think Friedman vintage. Yeah, get a little Friedman cab of the 112, sure. And what speaker you pick is an interesting, Dave's really liking the Redback, by the way, Celestion Redback. I would give that a try. He likes the sound of them, and he's got good ears for greenbacks and things. We generally like that kind of sound, and it's a high power speaker. It's a 150 watt speaker, so I would probably do that. Maybe try that Redback. I really like the Creamback 75s too. That can be a good thing. Queen Music said, spoke with Warren Haynes at 2019 Christmas Jam, and he mentioned you hooked him up with some guitars from your collection. Do you remember the guitars you let him use on these recordings? Did I lend Warren guitars? I might have. I don't remember that, but I might have. I lent him amps. I lent him my Comet. which is right there. And he really liked that amp. I remember he took that and used it on some recordings. The Comet, I might have given him something else too. I don't remember what else, to be honest, but I know the Comet for sure. And a 412. I think I lent him a divided by 13 412 that I have had for years that's got greenbacks in it, because he was doing some work in LA and he just needed some gear. And maybe I lent him my R9. I think you're making me think, it's a while ago, but I've got a nice, decent, like 2009 R9 Les Paul. And I think maybe I gave him that to use for my friend Jurgen plays bass in Government Mule, and he introduced, so I'm friends with Warren, and Warren's a terrific guy, and such a nice guy. So I love lending my gear to these guys. Like, honestly, I lent Dave Grissom my old Marshall, the 72 Marshall, and my Jim Kelly had stuff when he comes into town. I love that, because I even learned stuff, because I got the Marshall back and I looked at the settings, and it was really interesting. He had the tone controls all set really quite low, and then the channels, I think he'd been jumpering, and he had the treble channel volume on 3 or 4 and the normal channel on like 2, and I plugged it in and I just tried it like with his settings and the jumper. It sounded great for clean, and it was like, this would be terrific for like a great Marshall clean. And then I made adding some pedals or whatever for other tones. And it was a way that I would never set the amp. And with the mids down on like 2, and, all the tone controls set kind of low, and it just cleans right up. And it was like, I'm always cranking the mids because it sounds great for Van Halen and all that stuff. But for different tones, and especially if you're jumpering the channels, which drops the gain a little too, it's like there's a whole nother world there to explore. So I always feel like when you lend your gear to these really great players, they're putting some of their secrets into it in their tone. At least that's what I like to think. So I'm all about it, Yeah, Warren's a terrific guy. Renan says, what's your opinion on pairing a V30 with a Greenback 55 or a G12H 55? These would have the same efficiency. It depends on what you're trying to achieve, I love the 55 hertz cone Heritage Greenback. I think it's a really great speaker, actually. I almost forgot how much I liked it, and then I tried one on some stuff recently, and it was really great. So that's a terrific speaker. Why the V30 though? Like, are you trying to get a little mix of modern in there, or modern when I say, I know V30 is great. You just kind of have to try it. I don't know how else to describe it. You might try, I've never done that exact pairing. You might try and go, this is the greatest thing ever. And you might try and go, I don't know. Like, and then try it like with like 2, of the, like, just as valid would be the Greenback, the G12H 55 and a G12H 75, right? Or a G12H 55 and a Greenback. So it depends what you're trying to do, honestly. It's really hard for me to say, because I can't make I've never done that exact blend. But I'll tell you this much: I do really like the H55 speaker. It's a really good, terrific speaker. And I would love trying a blend of that with a Greenback 75. To be honest, Greenback 75 and a Greenback 55. I don't think of Greenbacks as G12. I should say G12H 55 with a Greenback 75. I think that would be the blend I would try, actually. Just me, but I'm not the biggest V30 fan. Although it sound great with something like that Soldano there. Just depends on the amp and stuff. Dan the Tube Man says, I'd love to hear you do some demos with the DSL 50, the Working Man's Marshall. Yeah, I mean, they're good amps, they can work. I was never really a big fan of the distortion channel on them. I like the green channel, kind of the straight up, the crunchy clean channel is pretty good on a DSL 50. Not bad. The other channel always sounded a little like weird to me. I don't know why. And then the scoop switch and stuff, the mid shift and all that sounded weird when I try those. But I think that you could probably tweak one. I know Dave Friedman has some tweaks that he does that kind of makes him sound better, So, Arvin says a lot of Californians are moving to Austin. Austin's got a huge music scene. It does. That's true. Do you think it'll become the next hotspot for aspiring musicians? Will you consider moving there? I really like Austin. It's a really nice town. I've always had a really good time there. It's definitely my favorite town and city in Texas. it's been a musical hotspot for a long time already. So I don't know that that's going to change, or if it's, to be honest, I feel like the last time I was there, maybe some people that are in Texas or, more Austin, hip to Austin can provide some insight on this, but the whole 6th Street thing in Austin, the last time I was there was like dance clubs, and there was a little bit of live music going on, and it was also crazy down there. And I mean, like, crazy people, like they've like a lot of like, just like fighting, and like, I remember there's a crazy, literally, like, there's something off with a guy that ran into the street in front of a fire truck. And I remember sitting having dinner, and like my friend was like, "Oh my God, no, what?" That guy just ran right in. The fire truck's like full on lights going somewhere, and this guy just ran out the street like in front of, and almost got taken out, and stuff like that going on, And I was just like, I don't remember 6th Street being like this, and just, it wasn't like a good scene down there. So then I went to a couple other areas of Austin, that, further down 6th, I guess it's maybe east. Can't remember exactly. I'm sorry, I just don't know it that well. But there was another area that had some really cool, like, much more laid back scene, great restaurants, and like a country bar and a karaoke place. I remember I went by, and like some other, like, kind of like a more punk rock bar and some different stuff. I was like, oh, this is cool over here. I dig this scene. But whatever was going on with the 6th Street thing was totally weird the last time I was there. So I don't know how I feel about it right now, to be honest. I was a little sad, actually, that it had changed so much, but that's places, they shift. And, well, let me hit Zabo Wabo in the top chat here. He says, Pete, love the channel. Wondering if we might be seeing a review soon of the Neural DSP Quad Cortex. Probably. I think that's happening. They've contacted me and asked me if I would do it. And I think there's just a little bit of, I don't know if there's delays or what, but it was supposed to, like, I probably would have had one already, but I think they're a little behind or something. So I think it's going to happen. Interested in checking that out for sure. But anyways, yeah, so Austin, I just didn't know what was going on last time I was there. I did, but I don't spend enough time. One thing that happened with me, and I've talked about this before, but my touring, once I started getting gigs in France and then Japan, that started taking me out of the US a lot, and also just kind of out of the US touring thing a little bit. Like, I haven't actually toured with an artist in the US since 2013, which is crazy. It's been a long time, but I've had multiple, 2 different French gigs as well as a Japanese touring gig, and those became my main. So I would go to Japan for 4 months or 6 months at a time or whatever, and then go to France for 5 months, and I was working overseas a lot doing those tours. And so Austin wasn't a place I'd been in a long time. I hadn't been to New York City before this past January in like 6 or 7 years, which is crazy because normally I would go there every few months. When you're in a band, you go to play TV, you go to do, the different TV programs and stuff like that, and fly around. You go to New York all the time, or, corporate gigs or different things. You find yourself there. I hadn't found myself in New York for a long time. So consequently, I wasn't in Austin for a long time. And the last time I went, I was like, this is weird. Like, I don't know if I get this anymore, but there might just be something I'm missing. So, Mount Line says, did I just miss something? Oh, Todd Roy was gonna, just before I hit this top chat here, Todd Roy says, do you have an aversion for orange amps? I've never had an orange. Rhett Shull recently did a good video on orange amps. Like, he's making the sound, and he did one on the orange amps, the sound of orange, and I thought it was great because Rick Beato showed, he's got a nice collection. He had at least 3 orange heads. And I learned something watching that and stuff, and I thought it was interesting. But overall, the orange amp sound, to me, it's cool, but it's not really my thing. I'm more like a Marshall guy, just like Pete Townsend was more a high-watt guy than he was a Marshall guy. I'm more a Marshall guy than an orange guy. And the reason is because of the thickness of the low end, which some people might like. But for me, with oranges, they're just really grindy and beefy in the low end. They're not that tight. And that sort of has always bothered me a little bit about them. So it's a cool sound, but it's not a sound that I particularly gravitate towards. So that's the thing for me. Mount Line says, how are your Helix HX Stomp presets coming along? And do you usually have some kind of EQ block when using the placator? I don't generally, I literally have the placator and then a good IR, and that's all I found. I can get a great straight up rock sound with just that. Now, so presets, I just did a preset for them for the, I don't know if it's out yet or not, but they've got an upcoming Helix, firmware release, like when they put out new firmwares, and I made a preset for them for that. So that'll be coming out. It's just free. You'll just be able to, it'll be, part of the, I think they had a bunch of artists do things. I'm not sure, but so I don't want to say too much because I don't know if I'm, but anyway, it'll be out eventually, and then you'll be able to get that preset. And it's a cool preset, actually. It's got a looper in it, and you can A/B between two sounds, and you can make a kind of a rhythm loop and then jam over it with the other sound using the looper. I thought it was really useful for, rather than just do a preset and here's a sound with a bunch of effects or whatever. It's like this one's actually for jamming and making rhythm loops and then jamming lead on top and stuff with the A/B and stuff with some different effects on the lead sound and the rhythm sound. I think it's a neat preset. Hopefully, guys will find useful. What else we got here? Jet Force Games says, "What's the best amp to use with the Sir Riot Reloaded?" Big hug from Brazil. Thanks, man. Best amp, a Sir Riot Reloaded is let me think about that. You can use an amp with a bright switch with the Riots because John voiced it that way. So it'll work fine with an amp with the bright off too. It'll just be a little darker. You want to turn the treble up, but there's some pedals, like for instance, the Carl Martin Plexitone, that to me, if you got a bright on the amp, it just doesn't really work. But into a neutral clean channel, they sound great. The Riot works great into much like the XTS Atomic Overdrive. They work great into an amp with the bright switch on. So, John really likes sparkly clean sound, so I think he voiced it that way. Excuse me, like a PT100 with the bright switch on, you could use with a Riot, and it'll sound great. So in other words, like something like a deluxe reverb, or depends. But I would say that it works great into a Fendery clean that is maybe on the sparkly side. Great with that. It'll sound really, really, really good. Hopefully that's helpful. Any thoughts on the Neo Creamback? That's Joe. I really like the Creamback 75. Oh, Neo Creamback. Neo Creamback's great. I know the one you mean. You're talking about the, I like the Creamback 75 a lot. Neo Creamback is like a worn-in sounding greenback, and I think they're very, very good, actually. If you want a light speaker, it sounds like a greenback that's got slightly rolled off top end, like what you want, I think. No fizz, really. It's really, really nice speaker. I tried them out, actually, because I thought maybe we could use them with the PT15 when we did the new cabinet. And I found that it was a little too relaxed sounding for a 15-watt amp. That was the only thing. It sounded good, but it was like not that bold. And when you only got 15 watts and maybe you guys want to play gigs with it, it was like, we better get a little bit more efficient sounding thing. And so that's why the V30 actually for the PT15, it was a nice combo. The PT15 cab, the greenback and a V30, just it was like it's all there. When you're trying cabinets, when you do a new amp design, it's interesting. It's like you listen and it's like that sounds good. Well, that sounds good. And then you'll try one and you go like, oh, and this has happened both times we did cabinets for me. And it was like, that's all there. Like that sounds like the best cross section of clean to dirty to like everything's there. This sounds good too. Like maybe you try this speaker, mix with this speaker, and this one sounds good. And then it's like, this cab sounds like very complete. And so just that was with the PT100, it was the two greenback H75s. And with the PT15, it was a greenback and a V30. It was just kind of what you get a bunch of guys in a room and you listen and you try it all. And then it's like, am I crazy or is this one the one? And everybody's like, no, I like it. And then some people might be like, I like this one too. And then you go back and listen to it. It's fun, it's just guitar nerds. Pete, have you triamped for recording before? Silver Lake Pro says, do you mean like, have I like hooked up 3 amplifiers and recorded them all? I don't know that I've ever done 3. I've done 2. Used to do, when I worked with Linda Perry for a few years there, I would use her AC30 and Deluxe Reverb together all the time, and then just use a blend of the two. We had like a ABY kind of box that would go to both amps and mic them up both, and then get a cool tone that was some blend of those two. So that I really enjoyed, but never 3 amps. I don't think I've done a lot of that, no, or any of that, to be honest. Okay. Jeff's got a split, he says. Great chat, great company. Thanks, man. He's probably out of here because that was 10 minutes ago. But thanks for being here. Yeah. Okay. Do you think you'll have Brian May as a guest sometime? I would love that. We'll see where it goes, you know. Now that I've had Mr. Frampton, I feel like I've upped my game. It's a matter sometimes of getting in touch with these folks, you know, because you see, I didn't even have any audio for the first 2 minutes of today. It's pretty low budge the way I do things around here. And I don't know that that's exactly what folks like Brian May want to do sometimes. I don't know. I was really stoked that Peter decided to do that. I think it's totally, I'm not like, I'm being self-deprecating. I think it's a very valid, I mean, obviously we've got 560 people online right now. I think it's as valid as any way to reach people these days. You know, and I like to think the low budget production is charming, but you know, I love doing things on my own and all that. So it is what it is. But whether or not I can attract those types of guys, I would hope someday I could. Yeah, you know, that it's all a matter of who you know too. It's just Peter I met years ago through Bob Clearmountain actually. So you know, you make friends with folks and you're like, you want to come on and do the show? It'll be fun. And then it always seems like people have a good time, you know, it always seems to be a pretty good hang and stuff. Did you guys get Peter's book? I wonder. Two things in the video with Peter last week, I put down the video description, obviously a link to his book, but also a link to somebody was asking about his really cool necklace that he's got that he's worn forever. And it's a guy out of Nashville, independent jewelry designer guy. And I put a link in the video description below. Peter asked me to for his jewelry, and I went to his website, and it's amazing stuff. Like the pendants the guy does and stuff is unbelievable. He's got one that looks like a guitar pick that is so cool. So I've been meaning to hit him up and get something, but it's something you should check out if you haven't. Have you ever shared what pedals you used for acoustics, such as with Chris? Greg Folsom says. Dude, I didn't really do anything that special on acoustic, I don't think. I mean, I would just I've always ran my acoustic guitar through the same pedal board as my electric. And I'll just have an A-B switch to go to the acoustic out. So I like to use the same tuner and all that. But I never really did anything that special. I don't feel like with Chris. I had a Gibson Sheryl Crow, which was basically like a country western that I played with him. What else did I use? A Washburn with a really nice LR Bags. That was my favorite pickup system. It was an old 70s style LR Bags under saddle pickup and preamp. And actually, Chris ended up borrowing that guitar from me for quite a bit of his, when he would play solo set on the 2009 run that we did, he would use that guitar a lot because he really liked that old LR Bags pickup. He was struggling trying to get an acoustic sound he liked. And so I remember making some suggestions to him about like doing a split in his in-ears with the dry sound here and then having them do a delayed version of it on this side, 11 milliseconds or so, and then pulling that up so he had a wider stereo image of his acoustic. And then I just lent him my guitar. I still have that guitar. And then he started getting way into, you know, I'd be interested to know what he used on acoustic actually later on, because once he started doing the songbook tour and all that, he had a whole rig with the loopers and you know, his Martin guitars and Taylor guitars and stuff. So he got pretty serious about his acoustic sound after that. Yeah. Okay. Try to get Satch on. I would love that. I'd love to talk to Joe Satriani. I've only met him once, and he was really nice, but I just met him for a second. Thoughts on the Sir Aldrich pickups? I have them in my brown modern, the only one I have. The stock pickups that came in that guitar. I don't really have a read on it because it's like so different than my other guitars with the Floyd and the Alder body and stuff. But sounds good in that guitar. Very different than what I would normally do, just as far as the output, you know, being so hot and, you know, the Alnico 5 and all that. It was cool though. I don't have a great read. I mean, I'd have to try his pickups in something like a Les Paul and compare. You know, it's not a pickup I've got a great handle on, even though I do have them in one guitar. They sound good in that guitar. You know what I mean? You put a Floyd on something and 24 frets and everything sort of changes, just starts to sound different. All the way to the bottom of the chat, the Guitar Effect says, I'm trying to decide on whether I need an AC style amp in my rig. I'm not quite sure exactly what the sound is. Well, when you're in front of an AC amp, what guitar do you go to, and what do you play? You know, the Edge, man. I mean, everything in the early days. I mean, you know, there's a ton of examples, I guess. I mean, obviously there's Beatles and Brian May, which is, of course, you're adding the treble booster, so it's a different thing. Roy Gallagher. You know, what else? There's other great, you know, examples of AC30. I mean, Richie Blackmore, I think, recorded a lot with one. You could do a little research and figure out what tracks exactly, but I think he played a 335 and AC30 on a bunch of stuff. It's a penetrating sound, and it's got a certain chime and clarity to it that is unlike anything else, you know? Whereas a Fender can be mid-scooped and sparkly, the AC30's got an upper mid chime, and they called them the Blizzard of Nails, you know? When they start to overdrive and the great guitar, it's a fantastic sound, and there's a compression to it. It's a different sound than just about anything else, you know, and a cool sound, and it can be kind of addictive to play. Some early Bryan Adams. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I would say the rhythm guitar on Run to You. When I think of that, I think that's got to be, because I know they recorded a lot with an AC30. And Keith Scott and both him, you know, fans of that amp. How about It's Only Love by Bryan Adams and Tina Turner, you know? That must be an AC30, I think. That, you know, that sounds so old, like naming all these tunes from so long ago, but you know, so I don't know. There's some examples. Who else we got here? Watching from Manila. Man, I haven't been there for a minute. I had some fun in Manila many years ago. Good times. That's Zarkap. Chris Shiflett, I've seen him use the vanilla hand-wired AC30s. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you could distinguish, with Foo Fighters, many times I don't know who's playing what part. So I would have to watch some stuff and go, oh, yeah. But yeah, he uses AC30s for his clean and Friedman's for his dirty tones. Strymon Iridium thoughts. I really like the Iridium on, specifically the AC30 is great, and the Fendery amp is great. The Marshall is on the dark side, I think. It's not a bad sound. It's just, I couldn't make it sound anything like my SL68 or like my 72, a brighter kind of Marshall Kerrang, you know? It was a little bit more like the Nashville version of what guys would think of as Marshall, you know? But cool, like good. You can hear it in my video. I made a video of it. You know, it's just, you can't get like hard rock or metal tones really out of it, I don't think. Maybe if you EQ'd it, but it's a little more, you know, if Americana, rock, country, R&B, great. Iridium's great for all that. Brandon Oshia is up there in the super duper top chat. Thanks, man. He says, could you give an insight into how you write your guitar parts and solos? I find myself singing the parts in my head and then applying to the fretboard. Yep. I'm poor on the fly. It needs work. Well, I think that it's just a matter of doing it enough where you hear the idea coming into your head and then you know where to find that note on the fingerboard. Honestly, Brandon, I think that's what it is. And I'm not that great at it either. I find myself, and honestly, I struggle with this because I want to get better at improvising stuff. But as I get older, I sort of care less. Maybe I'm getting lazy, but when I think about, I think improvising is awesome. I don't really think it's if you're not the world's greatest improviser, some guys worked out their parts. I mean, like, you know, I mean, when I think of Gilmour, he's a probably really good improviser, solid, I would say, but most of his solos that we know, he plays almost verbatim. Hotel California is verbatim. You play it live. It was obviously constructed, and it's a solo we all remember. So who cares in a way? I don't know. Unless you're, you know, obviously if you live in improvisational music land, Like, I was talking to when we had Josh Smith on. He's an improv guy, and his heart lies in that. It's so important. And if you're a jazzer and stuff, it's really important. But if you can come up with a great, memorable solo, and it takes you 20 minutes or half an hour, but then it's awesome and it's really memorable, and it's going on a recording, why does it matter if you improv'd it or not? Jeff Rupert is up there in the top chat, and he says, "Sorry, Pete, got here late. Can you recap the first 3 minutes of the stream?" Yeah, well, it was like that. Keep up the great bits. Thanks, man. And I'm sorry about the first 3 minutes. I have no idea why my mic didn't work. I'm gonna have to test it again. If that happens, I'll do a little test this week. And it's really weird. I mean, yeah, for those that got here late, my Samson mic, I don't know why. It might not be the mic. It's probably something to do with the, just Google Chrome or something, or like some sort of, I don't know what it is, but I'll reset all my settings and stuff, and then hopefully it'll start working again for next week. It said it was fine in the, and then when I go to live, it wasn't working. So weird. I checked it. I did. I made sure there was level and everything, and then I talked for 3 minutes, and then you guys could hear me. Oh boy, what else we got here? What do you do to practice rhythm patterns? Just metronome it, drum machine, play over and over. Dennis Timothy Music says, "Pete, love the live stream every week." Thanks, man. Don Henley is an amazing talent. Sure is. You say he seems like a curmudgeon. Do you have any stories that would help kill that impression of him? I sure do, man. I absolutely do. I'll give you an example. Brandon, I hope that was a good enough answer, as well as how I, write my parts and solos. I do the exact same thing you do, as far as like thinking about it in my head, listening to where the melody should go, and then I pick up the guitar and find the notes. And that's how I come up with my best, best, but whatever, like, the parts that seem to be maybe the most memorable, is by doing it without just going where my musical mind goes, as opposed to where my fingers want to go on the guitar, some pattern thing, And the more that you can learn the notes on the neck and where your mind translates to that, if you can go to the note, like for example, you sing the third in your head of a scale or whatever, and you know what note that is on the neck, that's going to get faster and faster. So, Henley, yeah, I mean, okay. So first audition, when I finally got a gig with him in 2009, I remember him giving me the gig in the callback. So I did an audition, and then I came back, and I'd met him years earlier because I'd auditioned for him 10 years before that. So then I came back in and did one. He listened to some guitar players, and then I had a callback. I went in and did it then, and he said, "All right, man, you're in. You're the guy," which felt amazing to me, because I auditioned 10 years earlier, and Peter Stroud had gotten it then, and I was like the runner-up for the gig. But and Don wrote me a very nice letter in 2000 when I didn't get the gig, and he said, "You did an amazing job, and I'm going to keep you in mind for the future." And like this really, like I'm talking like letter, hand signed, mailed to my house sort of thing. That made a big impression on me. He's a classy guy, and then when I got the gig finally, and all those years later, 2009, I guess it was 9 years later, that he told me in the audition, which was nice. It was nice not to pack up, go home, have them think about it for a couple of days, and then call me or whatever. It was nice right there on the, because you want to know, like when you feel like you did a good job after you get through a tune, it's great to hear. And that might be maybe the only time that happened, like where somebody in the audition said, "All right, you're in." And I was just like, with my guitar still around my shoulder, just like, okay, and then he's like, "All right, anybody hungry? Who wants cheeseburgers? Let's get in and out." That was cool. That's a great day. I remember, I felt like I'd climbed a mountain, and then we got burgers from In-N-Out. It was awesome. I remember him getting barbecue once when we were, he would do nice things. Like if we were in a certain town, like Texas, he's from around Dallas. We flew to do a gig somewhere. And I remember him getting the local barbecue restaurant that he really liked. He's like, "You guys got to get this." And he catered, for all the band and crew, and got all this barbecue brought in for all of us. That was really nice. I remember when he inducted Randy Newman into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I wrote him an email. And I said that you were so great. Like, if you haven't seen it, you should watch his speech when he inducted Randy. It's probably on YouTube. I'm sure it's easy to find. Randy was terrific, like performed with Don, and I loved it. And I loved his when you see it when he speaks about Randy, what a fan he is of music. You know, he's a really big fan. He's really serious about it. And I wrote him this email and I said, I really enjoyed your speech and your induction of Randy into the Hall of Fame. It was awesome. It made me want to listen to more Randy Newman, honestly. And he wrote me an email back and he said, Pete, start here, like get this record and then listen to this song and listen to this track and then move to this one. And he wrote me this whole letter like a fan, like an email, like a fan. Oh, you got to listen to this track and listen to this album. You're going to love this one. And, so there you go. It's like just connecting like a normal guy, like a, musician and a fan of another artist, because when he respects somebody, he's got a deep appreciation. I feel like, he's not just like we're the greatest things since sliced bread and whatever, he's like no, he's like, he really appreciates, he's got pretty high level taste, but and when he'd see a band that he liked, he would talk about them. You checked out this, I really like these guys. I saw him on some show or whatever. And he, so I don't know, nothing but good things to say, really. I mean, he's a serious guy, but I really like him. Every time I see him, I'm happy to see him. And, it's not often, but I played a gig with him a couple of years ago in Vegas, maybe a year and a half ago or something like that. And it was great. I had a really good time that day. I remember we flew back on the private jet. Yes, we did do that. Flew out to Vegas on the jet or whatever, that was, chartered to go to this gig. It was a birthday party for somebody. And then got on the plane, flew back later that night. And I remember, just rapping with him on the plane on the way back to LA and stuff. Sounds like rock star stuff, right? But it's cool, it was, and he was great. He was really in a good mood. I think he's 75 now, maybe. And I think as he gets older, and maybe after Glenn passed or something, I don't know. I'm just speculating, but that'll change you, right? I mean, he seems to be really like in a good, like relatively good place, and happy to be doing what he's doing and stuff. And so I really like him. I don't know. That's all I got to say. It's Newbie is up there in a super duper top chat situation. He says, hey, Pete, just wanted to say thank you how much you've invested into all of us. Hey, man, you guys are investing your time and your super chats here. And I really appreciate you being here. You're an incredible musician. Oh, man, I don't know. I'm still a student with an excellent heart for the community. Thanks, man. Thanks for being a champion for the cause. Hey, that's very sweet. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Is that gold guitar in the background an Ernie Ball Music Man? Gold guitar. Oh, no, that's a EVH. It's a, Fender made EVH model. Yeah. Always wanted one of those Music Mans. I still like one, They're very expensive though, the originals. Randy Newman should be president, says Hobo Roadie. I agree. These lyrics are one thing I think I've talked about this before, but Don is like a big fan of Randy Newman. And we did a version of one tour that I did, the coolest tour I did with him, actually. We did had a string section. No, sorry, a horn section. We had a horn section, 7-piece horn section. And we did a version of Guilty by Randy Newman. You know that song? Yes, baby, I've been drinking. It's such a great track. And with the twisted horns, the part, if you've never heard that track, listen to Guilty by Randy Newman. Oh my God, what a song. Go check that tune out if you're not hip to it. And the horns, when they're dissonant, is so friggin' cool. And if they're the wrong level in the mix, it can be really bad, but if they're just mixed right, it's just twisted enough, because he's singing about drinking and cocaine and all this stuff. And it's really brilliant, like how I don't know how you do that, like with lyrics and music, and combine them to have an emotional impact. It's a beautiful piece of art. Guilty by Randy Newman. Check it out. But we covered that tune. It was really fun to play that with the horns behind. Nothing like having real strings or real horns behind you. It sounds amazing. It's like the real deal. How big is your studio room? Says Kicho. It's I don't know. It's an odd size, to be honest. It's probably maybe 12 or 13 feet wide, maybe by, I think, 18 that way, something like that. Yeah, 18 in length. Not huge, but I've got other rooms where I can, where I've got a cab and stuff. So it's not just this room, actually. John Wilson says, amazing hair. Hey, thanks. Somebody recently was like, I like short hair better. I usually hear when people don't like it. It's growing, man. I'm basically back to my like 2009 or 10 look right now. And I'm just going to let it keep going. I think I'm just going to go till like March. Just haircuts, forget it. And then I'll get a trim. What else we got here? I just was like, why not? It's like, it's still there. It hasn't gotten up and left. So let's just do this. Any tips on improvising solos, says Russell? That's funny because it's like I was just talking about how I'm more of a solo constructor than an improviser, but improvising solos, I mean, you just have to work on developing your inner voice, what your brain is telling you, not where your hands just want to go on the neck. Leaving space. Okay, I mean, like some good things, and I've talked about them before, is always starting down lower. Maybe not coming in right on the one of the bar. Okay, take it. Give it a beat or two. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Whatever. And then start working up the neck. I'm totally like not warmed up right now, but you get the impression. Play simple phrases, leave a little air, and then play something else, and then play something else, and then work up the neck and start getting a little higher on the neck, maybe a little busier, and then keep working up, and like that, and then end up at the, whatever. Whatever up the, but that's what I would personally do is think about leaving more space at the beginning and starting lower, coming up with a theme, maybe repeating the theme, higher, and that seems to work well for, it's like Angus Young, the way that he built solos, So Steve Hale says, did you play with Don Henley before Stuart Smith or after? Same time. I was the other guitar player in the band so when Don would play solo, basically it was all the Eagles guys, touring guys, except for me and Lance, the bass player, and me being kind of in the Joe Walsh role almost. So Stuart was stage left, I was stage right guitar player for 2009 to 2015, something like that. And then I've played with him a little bit after that occasionally. So York has a cool new VX30 212 pack. How would you set PT15 to emulate an AC30? I never claim that the PT15 does AC30 sounds, although the cabinet will get you part of the way there. I would turn on the bright switch for sure on channel 1. Jason Tong, by the way, says, love your work, Pete. Keep it up. Thanks, man. Up there in the super chat. Thank you, my friend. Yeah, I honestly, I can't claim that when an amp is so different without the EL84s and the particular interesting EQ design and everything in the front end that it makes an AC30 sound like an AC30. It's a very specific sound. It's a different sound. And so you can get a pedal that can get you part of the way there. I mean, the Wampler one is pretty cool. And the old Boss, what was the Boss one called? Combo Drive or something? I don't know. They had a modeling thing that kind of did the AC30 thing. And it sort of gets you sort of part of the way there, But it's a unique sound, the AC30. That's just, there's no way around it. If you're into, there's all these pedals that emulate amps and stuff, but if you have the amps and you're like, oh God, it's a really specific thing. And it's largely it is about the speakers and the cabinet and all that stuff too. So you're right. The York IRs will get you part of the way. But Alex says, Sir Alt T guitars, what do you think? What you can't use them for? I think they're really good rhythm guitar, that's for sure. And for some folks, you know, I mean, it's basically, think of a thin line telly, like a 70s thin line telly. I don't know, there was a lot of guys that played blazing lead on thin line hollow body ash tellies, you know. It's a great, you know, Rolling Stones or you know, even like for heavy rhythm tones and stuff, but it's ash and it's hollow. It's going to be a more scooped thing. Terrific lower gain rhythm stuff, I would say, is what that guitar really excels at. It's also kind of like, I think they've got this, their medium neck shape on there. And what else? Smaller frets, you know, it doesn't have like real big frets on it and stuff. Not super small, but to me, it's not like a, you know, it's not a shredder guitar. Okay, what else we got here? What do you usually do when you have a melody in your head, but it's hard to figure out the chords? Well, first thing I'll do is try and record the melody on my phone. And so that I don't forget it, and I can always reference it. And then chords is always just like, it's sort of arbitrary underneath what you play for chords many times under a certain melody, right? I always use the example, she loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, 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 yeah. Right? It's like so great because you get this one melody that's the same, and then the different, you know, the different chords have such a different effect on the, so you just try different chords until you see what works with your melody, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. And if you've got the melody recorded in your phone or something, you know, then you can always reference back to it, and you might, you know, try a chord that you don't think would work, you know, I don't know. I mean, I was just thinking about She Loves You. What if there was some other chord they tried? Loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. Loves you, yeah, 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 yeah. That's weird, right? But it could have been that. And so it really is about just trying the different chords and seeing what works. And it's fascinating when you think about it, right? I love that aspect. I love, that's the perfect example, by the way. I use that example a lot because it's just, you're taking random chords and putting them, whether or not they had that planned or they just tried the chord. I can see Paul and John just sitting there going, what about a C? What about an A? You know, it's interesting, you know. I would say there's different ways to somebody's saying still no guitar patch in. No, I don't right now. I'm sorry. Just coming through the mic. I like to think it doesn't matter, but what was my point? Different types of ways to write songs, right? So you've got no, sorry, I'm in drop D. Right? You've got that song, you know, that's obviously riff based, right? Riff based songwriting. Oh, that's why the guitar sounded so weird when I was playing an E. Oh, now I see why. And the G, sorry, I sound like shit because the T dropped. Anyway, so you got your riff based songs, you know, right? You know, or, you know, songs that start with a riff, and the riff is like this major hook thing, right? And then you guys do those strumming and melody, you know, more like a melodic based thing, you know. And then you know, another great example of that, maybe more lyric based. Yeah, so oh, once upon a time, you dressed so fine, through the bumps of dime in your prime. Didn't you? Right? People call, said, beware, dog. You thought they were all just kidding you, right? That song, you know, it's like 5, you know, you used to laugh about everybody that was hanging out, and now you don't seem so proud. Now you don't, you know, it goes on and on and on and on. So many verses. I don't know how important the chords are. It's more about the story he was telling. And then he sort of found some chords and these descending and ascending chord progressions that just worked with what he was singing. My point, I guess it's very melodic. And how does it feel? How does it feel, right? To be on your own. I mean, it's there's that melody, but I almost feel like it's more about the story he's telling. It's more poetry put to music, lyric-based songwriting. Maybe, I don't know, or maybe not. But I like to think that he was writing, and then he just started singing and found some chords. That's, I don't know. It sounds to me that's how it was done. Melody-based songwriting, lyric, story, poetry-based songwriting, riff-based songwriting. You know, so they started with that. They had to have, you know. I don't think they had a. She was a day tripper. I don't think that's where the song came from. I think it came from the riff. You know, these different things that where you kind of branch off from, you know. So, anyways, blah 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 blah. Even the greats like Keith Richards and Eric Clapton say they've heard great melodies in their head and forgotten them. Recording immediately is essential. I agree. Yeah, the quicker you can record, which is why phones are so brilliant these days, because you can hear it walking down the street and just sing it into the phone, right? It's terrific, you know. What are you guys talking about? Bill Lawrence pickups and stuff. I missed out on that. Sorry, that little chat. I guess I should go soon. I've been going an hour and 2.5 hours. I think it's probably time to go. Simone says. So yeah, let's start winding it up. But I'll take a couple more questions. Simone says the Red 7 amp. What's going on with that? Well, so. With the gracious permission of the folks from Sir, because I was concerned about this, I'm doing some demos, not demos, but more reviews actually for Guitar World magazine now. I did one of a Tascam mixer recently, and the next thing they wanted me to do was that amp. And I said, let me talk to Sir and just make sure it's cool, clear it with them and stuff. And I spoke with them and I said, you know, I feel like Rabia and like some other folks, they've got signature gear, amps, guitars and stuff, and they still make videos for other things. And I said, I think this is just kind of the way it's going, you know. And I said, I think if I just do, you know, for Guitar World, these honest reviews of some of their products and stuff, I don't think at this point, I think everybody knows my main squeeze is Sir, PT15s, PT100s. Those are my amps that I use the majority of the time for touring stuff. Obviously, I have different stuff in the studio too for different things. But, you know, I said, are you guys okay with this if I was to make? And John gave me his, you know, and Justin, the artist fellow there, gave me their blessing, said, go ahead and just, you know, I said, let me know if it seems like it's a problem down the road, if it's confusing. But it seems like the guys that do YouTube, this is just part of the thing that we do. You know, we talk about other stuff besides, and then we've got our signature stuff, right? So I'm not going to do a ton of them, but I did make, long story short, a demo video of this Red 7 amp, which is an Italian-made amp, and it's for Guitar World magazine. So that'll be coming out mid next week, I think, probably mid to late next week, that video. So that is happening. And it's a cool amp. It's got, you know, 3-channel amp with a very good plexi voiced middle channel, modern high gain, versatile, clean. There's a lead boost on it as well that you can put in front of the channels, and there's a effects loop switchable to buffer effects loop. So that'll be coming out. Excuse me, burping. Jeff says he's got a Marshall 212, the G12 T75s that he doesn't use much anymore. Would be worth replacing the speakers with Celestion F12 X200s to use as a full range cab for FR. What does that mean again? What does that FR mean? I know full range, but flat response full range, right? Flat response full range. It's so confusing to me. Or am I throwing good money after bad? If you need a full range thing, that Celestion speaker is surprisingly, I don't want to say surprisingly great, because that sounds like, whatever, you know, but no, it actually really works. Like, I was quite pleased with the way it sounded. I don't know about it in a closed back. I've only tried it in an open back cabinet, but in the open back cabs, I tried it with, great, really good. Like, damn, that sounds pretty damn good, you know, with the Helix plugged into it or whatever. So, yeah. What else we got here? Have you ever used a Mesa Barba? I have not. I know those amps. That's one amp I haven't tried. First rule of Lab Series: don't talk about Lab Series. I got it because I'm a Thai fan, you know, and I had to try it. And it does go a long way towards that tone. It really does. What would you say is a good brown sound setting on the PT15? I have gain at 6, Bass at 7. It's a little high on the bass, maybe. Mids at 2. Treble 7. I wouldn't have the mids that low. I have to try your settings, but treble at 7, presence at 6 into a greenback. Sounds close, but surprised I had to roll the mids down. That sounds like the mids are really low to me. I mean, I don't know if you think I got close. If you listen to the way that I had it set, for instance, the Classic Rock Show video of me playing Jump and Eruption, I would have the mids much higher. I mean, probably around 5 or maybe around the middle, you know. Generally speaking, we voiced the amp so you can set the tone controls on around 5 and then just move them a little bit one way or another. So, for instance, when I did the video where I'm comparing it to an SL68, I didn't have the mids that low. I think I maybe cut them to 4. There's a lot of factors, you know, like depends on your pickup, what guitar you're using, if you're running anything else in line, and who knows what they did in the studio as far as scooping mids a little and stuff, you know. You know, a Marshall on 10 to me doesn't sound like mids cut like that. I know Eddie liked to do that, but I wonder if he did it like. Sometimes I wonder what Don Landé did. You know, if he carved it up with an EQ or what. It's hard to say. Ian Ferguson says, "I finally got my Wilkinson saddles installed on my Strat. You're right, it does sound better. Cool, right? It sounds different, right? And you're like, oh, that sounds good. Like." It's an unexpected bump in tone as well as the tuning stability. I think it's fantastic, you know. Peter Evans says, fantastic show. Enjoy the day. Thanks for being here, man. Thank you guys for doing the super chat. You guys are too kind. I'll mention it one more time. I've got an affiliate link for Sweetwater in the video description below. If you need a kazoo or some drum heads or a snare strainer or some double brace drum hardware or an SM58 microphone or perhaps some lighting gels, whatever you need. It's helpful. It supports the channel. If you click there. Let's see here. I kind of wonder how Pete likes the Lab series, says Kitchen Marshall. You know, it sounds pretty cool. And it does that sound. Like it's like, oh yeah, like if you set it just right, you gotta find his settings online. You know, his exact settings, which you can find. There's pictures. If you just search Ty Tabor Lab series settings or something, I found them, you know. I'm sure I'm in touch with him. I talked to him a little bit. I could probably ask him now, and he probably wouldn't mind telling me. But I like to think those things are somewhat sacred, and I don't want to, you know, be too pushy about things like that, right? Let's figure it out on your own, on the hobbyist. You know, not saying I won't tell you, but what do you got to do? I've got it set that way now. The volume's on 10 basically. I've got the bass on about 4 or 5. The mid frequency is at about 3 o'clock, and the mid level is at about 4 o'clock. Treble is almost cranked basically, and then the multi-filter thing is on 6, and then you set the master wherever, and the reverb is off and the compressor's off. So those are the settings that I found, and it's got that compressed, very fast thing. And when you solo with it, yeah, it's cool. I don't know. There's a couple guys, a guy on YouTube that really nails it. That's got you know, I think he's got a Lisa EQ or something in the loop, and because I think Ty did some EQing, and he did sound. He's got the right guitar and all that stuff, and it really sounds great. It sounds like pretty dead nuts on. So check out those videos. You can find them if you search. What model of Germino is that red amp? Says Braxall. Well, it's a Headroom 100, but it's been heavily modified at this point by Friedman. So it's got all the basically Jose kitchen sink mods going on. The extra gain stage in the front end, 2 different types of masters, the pre and the post master. It's got the Zener limiting. Those are the main things. And then it also has the channels blended internally and done right, so there's no gain loss. So not like when you jumper on an old Marshall and you get that little bit of gain loss. If you do it like this, you don't get any gain loss, and it sounds better. It sounds great, man. The way that the channel blend thing is huge. Anybody that's got a Plexi out there that likes to blend, you should ask Dave to mod yours. Or if you've got a reissue or a similar amp or something, the way that he does it is really the way to blend the 2 channels internally so that you can just turn them up volume 1 or 2 and get the blend is really cool. It's a different sound. It's more powerful and clearer. I always find with jumpering, you lose a bit of volume and it just sounds a little more indistinct. the amp, which can be great if you're playing like Black Crowes tones or something. It's cool, you know. But if you want to get the same aggression out of the amp that you can get out of the treble channel when you turn it way up, but you want to jumper and mix in the bass channel a little bit, with this, it's the tone stays aggressive and stuff. It's just really cool. Yeah. Matt says he just wants to replace, he's up there in the top chat, he wants to replace the neck on his Tele truss rod issue. What do I think of Warmoth versus Fender replacement? Well, I think Warmoth does licensed Fender neck shapes. You know, with Fender, I guess maybe it's a little more legit, just as far as, you know, you can get the Tele logo and all that easily, probably, right? You say it's a Tele, right? Is it, there's no warranty situation? I guess probably not. I don't know, to be honest. I'd probably be inclined to go with a Fender replacement, but there's nothing wrong with the Warmoth. It's literally just because it's a little bit more like legit, you know, as far as you know, it's going to have Fender probably stamped on the neck or something or whatever, as opposed to Warmoth on the inside of the pocket, you know. So for resale and things like that, if you could find one you liked, you know. Braxall says, you told me not to mess with my Marshall 72 watt. Now mod it. Well, a mod like that is okay. If you've got a totally stock one, you don't want to break any solder joints or any of that. That's one thing. But this is I don't think it's that, like the internal blend thing is very simple, whatever it is. And it's cool. It's really cool. I like it a lot, actually. I think even Dave was really surprised because he felt like, at least I don't want to speak for him, but he mentioned like, oh, this is like having depth, but without doing it in the power amps. Like kind of, it's just, you know, if you're used to the kind of indistinct, the little bit of less aggression and stuff that you get when you jumper the channels, but you like that tone. Imagine it like really robust sounding and still, and then you just blend in the normal channel. It like just comes on. It sounds like really tough. And it's like, oh, that's better. Like that's just better. It's cool. So, you know. If it's an amp you're going to keep anyway. Yeah, way out of warranty, says Matt. Don't forget about Musicraft next, says Stephen Douglas. Yeah, I have one of those on my, I think that's what's on my Van Halen sort of model guitar, the black one. Good neck as well. Let's see here. Arvin says, does guitar playing help you in the bedroom? I don't know. It depends on the kind of what, you know, certainly used to 1960s, I think 1970s, you know. Now maybe, you know, I don't know, if you're a video game guy or computer programmer, you might get more chicks. I don't know, but there's still girls out there that like guitar players. Sure there is. Yeah. What else? I guess it's time to go. I'm winding down here. I've talked enough. Anybody, last few questions here. Angus says, are you a Logic user because you have a Mac, or did you try lots of, you know, it's a great question, actually. Wondering if I tried lots of DAWs. I started with Pro Tools with an M box, and this was back around 2003 or 4. And everybody had an M box back then, one of those blue ones, you know, the tower. And I found with my Mac, I had a pretty good Mac laptop, and I found that I could only get about 10 or 12 tracks going and a few plugins before it started to bog down, would crap out. And I was like, this kind of sucks. It's like I can't really get that much going. And furthermore, with Pro Tools, you had to buy a lot of, you know, aftermarket plugins and stuff to get anything really cool sounding. And somebody said, try Logic. It comes with great plugins. And I mean, it had like 72 plugins included or something. And somebody told me it's written much better as a native program that operates on, you know, the DSP on the computer. You know, Pro Tools, they were trying to get you into their HD rigs primarily back then. And MBox was just like to, you know, wet the palate, you know, so to speak, and get you into buying a big system. You know, I felt like, whereas Logic was lived and breathed, you know what I'm saying. So on the native system, so it worked better, and that's how I got into it. I could do more. I could get 20 tracks going with, you know, plugins, and, you know, before the computer would start to sag a little. And so that's how I started using it, you know. And now I'm using Luna as well. I use Luna about equally with Logic. I'm really enjoying Luna. MIDI on it's still tough for me, but the sounds and the tape and all that is just, it gets addictive. You know, it's gooey sounding. It's great. Gooey in a good way. little more analog. Vincent says, am I insane to be using a 412 on low volume in a small space? No, plenty of people do. I mean, if you like it, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. If you're digging it, man, go for it. You know, don't worry about getting a smaller cab unless you want to save space and stuff. Prince Westerberg says, record in Logic X, mix in Harrison mix bus. I've heard good things about that Harrison mix bus. I've never tried it, but, you know, it's been out for a long time now. Matt says he's really starting to love Luna. Yeah, try. I'd be interested, Prince Westerberg, what you think of Luna too, because it's pretty damn cool. I mean, with the Neve summing and the tape sim is just, it sounds great. You know, I'm not as into the analog. What I meant to say is I'm not as into the Ampex 102 on the 2 bus. It seems to be brighter all the time to me. So I'll get my mix going and then I'll put that on. And I'm always like, it's so aggressive in the top end, and then I'll take it off and go, oh, that's doing it. And so I haven't quite found the magic setting for that thing yet, but the Studer just seems to add gooey goodness. Not too much either. It's just like you turn it on, everything sounds better. That's the, you know, Studer on every single channel. So it seems to work really good. Lord Finger says Luna sounds good, but don't you have to pay for all the plugins that sound good? Well, I mean, it'll work with third-party plugins too in the mix. It comes with Oxide tape, I think, for free. I use the Studer, but Oxide's cool too. It's just a different tape plugin. It just might sound better to some people. I don't know. You know, just I already have a lot of the UA plugins, so it wasn't that big of a concern for me because I could just move over and start working on it, and you know, I already have a bunch of that stuff. So, but yeah, you have to buy a lot of, you know, the UA plugins aren't cheap, but they're great. It's good stuff. Everybody, Mark says he appreciates my Twitter feed. Thanks, Mark. Thank you. I appreciate it. Stay out of that stuff here, but Twitter, we go full force. Have you ever tried blending Marshall and Vox sound, says Neil? You know, funny you should mention, I've got a video on that on the TC Electronic website. I actually did a thing where I blended a AC30 and a Marshall in their studio. I went a little too gainy on the AC30, I think, but other than that, it's pretty good sound. I had them panned and blended. We were trying to, you know, make a bunch of videos in 1 week. So one of the things we did was combine those 2 amps in a video. So check that out on the TC page. But a great old AC30, 60s AC30 and a 70s Marshall JMP that I'm running at the same time and loud. I had them cranked up. I was pissing off everybody that week at the TC factory in Denmark. With plenty of amps, what's your take on modelers? I think modelers are great. They're a great tool. You know, there's so many, it's just different tools these days. There's great ways to, the most important thing is the music you write and play, I think, you know. I love amps because I love the way they smell. You turn them on, the tubes burn, and they're just easy to. I love the ease of reaching out, turning the knob, and being able to get more treble instantly or whatever I want. It's just, you know, and you can plug them into a cab and take them to the gig, and they work great, you know. But that said, the Helixes and the Effexes and the Kempers, they all have their place. They're great units too. And there's plenty of people that's their main rig these days. That's what they use, and they're making records and having a career. So, you know, whatever works. Miguel says, hey, Pete, do you still like your Atom monitors, or do you use Barefoot most of the time? I split. I use both. You know, the Atoms are my main kind of near fields, the small, you know, and then the Barefoots I check things on. They're a little bigger. And, you know, they're more like how I would use midfields or the big monitors in a big studio. And my main mixing is done, I guess, probably on the Atoms. And I just split between the two, and then I've got the comparison, you know. So, Ben Coombs says, give me a subscription if you don't mind. Trying to hit 3K by the year. Everybody give Ben, my faithful moderator, a subscribe. Go see him. Subscribe to his channel. And because he's a good dude, and he's got lots of guitar-related content. Good stuff. Kitchen Marshall says, what's the most amount of wah pedals you've ever owned at the same time? I don't know, probably right now. I don't know. I'm not sure how many I have. Like I say, they break all the time on me, and I never throw them away. So I probably have 10 lying around or something. It's the one thing I tend to break a lot of. Dave Friedman will tell you that I break everything, but you know. Somebody's asking if I've ever used PreSonus Studio One. Shut up and play. I like. Oh, it's a DAW, right? I haven't used that, but I started off on a PreSonus interface many years ago. After the M box, actually, the next thing I got was a PreSonus, and I really liked it. I like PreSonus gear. I think it's good gear, not for a nice price. Honestly, sounds good. Braxall said, is the Germino amp hard to get? Well, one of a kind as it is now, because it was modded by Friedman with the Jose mods. This amp was a great deal that I got from a store in Nashville. I got it for $18.50, which I felt like was or 18, I think. Very fair price. You know, it's got a couple nicks and scuffs on it. It's 10 years old. It's been used for sure by somebody in Nashville. But it's 100. It was 100 watt Headroom 100, and sounded great. Like right out of the, you know, it's just I was using it as kind of a donor amp for these mods, but when I got it, I was like, I almost don't want to mod it. It sounds terrific as it is. And it's still, I could still get that sound out of it, even with the mods that Dave did. That's what I found. I was kind of adamant. I was like, please, can I keep that sound if possible, you know? And it really does sound good, you know? So it's, you know, you can find probably one, you know, I mean, 100 watt heads, they're arguably, it's, you know, not a ton of uses for them these days, especially with, you know, nobody playing live for at least seems like a while now. So you probably find one if you look hard enough, but it's a boutique amp, so I don't know how many he's even made. Vincent Moretti, my buddy up there in the top chat. Thank you. Pete, he says, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks. All right, you guys. I think I got to split. I'm hungry. And so I'm going to go. David Sparrow says, who are you planning to have for your next guest? I'd love to have Brian Ray on, so I'm going to ask him. Somebody mentioned that. I'd love to have Richie on. I'm going to ask him. And I don't know who will say yes. Some people might tell me to F off. Other people might say sure, or anywhere in the middle. So there's a couple ideas that I ask people. Anybody you guys know that you can think of, ask them if they'd be interested on my show. I don't know. If you can think of anybody, I'd love to. Like I say, I'll do it about once a month. You know, so a couple more weeks on my own, and then I'll have I'll get a guest lined up for 3 or 4 weeks from now. Yeah. Kurt says, discuss the dual rectifier, and is it the only Mesa amp that allows players to? It's moving so fast now, the chat. I'm sorry I missed it, Kurt. We got to do this next week because I'm too hungry. I got to go eat. You guys have a great week, and I'm sorry about the beginning, about the stupid mic problem. I'll solve that this week and figure out what was going on. Worst comes to worst, I know how to fix it instantly. I've just been on the internal mic of the computer for the whole show today. So that worked fine. All right. Guys, have a great week. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you all. Take care.